Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I call this Sawyer County Zoning Committee meeting to order. And just before we get started here, is everybody turn in their appearing slips that want to speak, public comment, or on an agenda item? Okay. All right, I call, can we do roll call, Kathy, please?
Ron Buckholz.
Here.
Stacy Hessel. Here. Tweed Schumann. Kay Wilson. Michael Maestri.
Here.
John Righeimer.
Here.
Thank you.
So if Tweed's not on it, we can still have John.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, right now.
All right. All right, Pledge of Allegiance. It's a flag, Jay. Okay.
Oh,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, statement of committee and hearing procedures and statement of hearing notice. The full statement of committee and hearing procedure documents, including directions from individuals wishing to speak at a public hearing, is conducted at this zoning committee meeting, are available in front of this room next to the agenda for today's meeting. The statement of committee and hearing procedure documents is hereby incorporated into the record for this committee hearing. Any public hearing conducted today in committee has been published as a Class 2 notice in accordance with Chapter 85 of the Wisconsin statutes in the Sawyer County Record and the Sawyer County Gazette as posted. So, okay, approval of the June 16th minutes, please. Can you use your light?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from June 16th, 2023.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Wilson, a
I'll second
second
that.
by Ms. Hessel to approve the June 16th minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm on now, Mr. Buckholz.
Oh,
Let the
Thank
record
you.
reflect that Tweed Schumann is on virtually.
you just have to hang on until she leaves, yeah. Okay. Public comment? Anybody wishing to speak on public comment? Oh, yeah, I better read it. Public comment note is intended for the general public comments, not comments related to a specific application before this committee. Each agenda is requiring a public hearing, which we will public hearing conducted just prior to the application being considered by this committee. If you wish to speak on a specific agenda item, we encourage you to hold your comments until then.
I have one public comment sheet from Linda Zomer.
Linda Zilmer, Village of Birchwood resident, Edgewater property owner. And I want to talk in general about how the town and county relationship is working with regard to zoning. And when this committee decides on a calendar for 2024, I think a review of timelines between application dates, making sure applications are complete, when they are noticed, information gets to town or to the towns before setting a public hearing is critical. There are not enough resources in the zoning department to accomplish all this and do it well within the timeframes that you have. So for instance, this month's matters that are coming before you, when they were first noticed in the newspaper, were on a Wednesday, I think the first Wednesday of July. Many of the towns met the very next day. People in the public would if they have their Sawyer County record delivered on Thursday, would not have even seen a public notice. The materials were not posted on the county website until July 13th. I had, for instance, I attended the Bass Lake Comprehensive Plan Committee meeting the day after the public notice came out. No one was there, and I think you'll see maybe a lot of people turned out today. Second item I wanted to talk about, besides looking at how effectively this town-county relationship is working, is I am curious as to, with the ongoing discussions with proposed zoning ordinance amendments, which failed 0 to 15 to pass, why one of the zoning matters that's coming you today is proposing that the applicant be allowed to do something that is not possible in shoreland zoning. So maybe as part of the staff report, before that matter comes up, there can be an explanation. Otherwise, I will speak to it during that matter's public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Okay, anyone else want to speak on the public comment?
I'm seeing no hands online.
Okay. All right. Number 2, rezone applications, there's none.
And then conditional use permit. This is a public hearing in the town of Hunter. Conditional use permit number 23-017. Owner Gerald Stanazaski, part of the southeast 1/4, the northeast 1/4, section 36, township 40 north, range 7 west. Tax ID 44473, 2.283 total acres, zone residential recreational 1. Permit is desired for a 40 by 60 pole shed across Town Road, 22 feet in height. This is per section 4.26 parent 3 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. As per my staff report, again, the permit is desired for a pole shed, which is an accessory structure not to exceed 40 by 60 and 22 feet in height. The proposed structure is to be located on the other side of the town road, which is Fletcher Road, from where the primary dwelling is located. This is subject to section 4.26 parent 3. That construction of a single accessory structure on an adjacent parcel of land that is divided by a public roadway and defined as one continuous tract of land by deed or survey map will require a conditional use permit. Recently, the property owner was able to acquire additional land on the backside of the road through a missing gap in title. With this additional land, the property owner is now requesting a CUP for a larger pole shed on the backside of Fletcher Road. There may be area available on the lakeside of this property to fit this size structure. However, the lakeside area would have topographic challenges associated with it. It would also be limited. It would also limit the cumulative impacts of impervious surfaces if the new pole shed was located further away from the lake. The proposed pole shed would be located approximately 425 feet from the lake and would meet all other setback requirements, including impervious surface standards per land area. As per motion of the town board, motion was approved. Laura Rusk, Jim Dyer, Dennis Clagett. Approved based on any controlled runoff requirements from the county. Signed Patricia Swayfield, town clerk. There were 7 additional comment letters that were sent out to adjacent property owners. 1 was returned with no objections. That was from the Lakudere tribe, does not have any issues with the proposed application. Signed Nita Kemp, Director of Real Estate Services for LCO. That is all.
Okay, all right. I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 23-017.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Miss Hessel,
I'll second that.
a second by Miss Wilson to go into public hearing on CUP number 23-017. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Is applicant here? You want to come up, state your name and tell us, talk to the committee? And your address, please.
Gerald Stanizak, address 9732 West Fletcher Road.
Is there anything you would like to tell the committee?
Not really. The proposed pole barn, you would not be able to see it from the lakefront. So aesthetically, it wouldn't disrupt it wouldn't be an eyesore. The natural slope of the land on the north side of the pole barn, the slope of the land goes to the south. So as far as rain runoff, that would be mitigated with the area that I picked up through Attorney Duffy last year. And that's about it. I'm I'm new to this, so
Okay.
I don't know what's important, not important to say, so I apologize. First time doing this.
All right. Any committee guys, members have a question for him? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone that wants to speak in favor of this conditional use permit? Is there anyone out there that wants to speak opposed to this conditional use permit?
No hands.
Okay. All right. If nothing else, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 23-017, please.
I make- Okay,
I make a motion to come out of public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion by Miss Wilson and a
I'll-
second by Miss Hessel to come out of public hearing on CUP number 23-017. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, the town of Hunter, conditional use permit number 23-017. Owner, Gerald Stanizak. Legal description is previously read into record. This permit is desired for a 40 by 60 by 22 foot high pole shed across the town road as per section 4.26 parent 3. While keeping in notes, my conditions that I've attached as part of my staff report, that no habitable area be allowed in this accessory structure, no commercial use or operation allowed in the accessory structure, the size of the proposed accessory structure not to exceed 40 feet by 60 feet by 22 feet high, and must follow all other town, county, state, and federal regulations, including compliant setback locations.
Thanks, Jay. All right, committee, I turn it over to you, Miss Hessel.
I'll make a motion to approve CUP 23-017.
Okay, you want to throw your finding of facts in there with that?
Finding in facts 1 through 9, and along with the notes from the zoning administration.
For the
Okay,
conditions.
okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Miss Hessel and a second by Miss Wilson to approve this CUP number 23-017. Any more discussion? Mr. Maestri, Mr. Schuman,
Nope, I'm good. I'm ready to vote.
Me too.
okay. All right. Kathy, can we do roll call?
Ron Buckholz,
Yes.
Stacy Hessel, Kay Wilson, Tweed Schuman,
Yes.
Michael Maestri,
Yes.
all in favor.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on, this is a public hearing in the town of Bass Lake, conditional use permit number 23-018, owner Brian and Christine Leggy, Avon Post Beach, lots 22 and 23 of block 2, section 39, township 49 north, range 8 west, tax ID 17. It is 0.18 total acres zoned residential recreational 1. Permit is desired for an accessory structure garage across a town road. The principal dwelling is located north of Poplar Avenue per section 4.26 parent 2 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. Size will not exceed 30 feet by 36 feet with an overall height of 16 feet and meet all other setbacks. As per my staff report, again, the permit is desired for a garage across the town road from where the primary dwelling is located. Size not to exceed 30 feet by 36 feet and 16 feet in height per section 4.26 parent 2. The current primary dwelling is on a separate lot immediately adjacent across the town road. The proposed garage would not be able to fit on that lakeside portion due to setback requirements. The proposed garage would be located approximately 230 feet from the lake and would meet all other setback requirements. It would also meet all other provisions and subsections of 4.26 parent 2 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. The property is located in a platted subdivision and additional survey work has been conducted on the property for setback compliance. As per my conditions listed in my staff report, no habitable area to be allowed in the structure, no commercial use or operation allowed to be in that structure. Size of the proposed accessory structure not to exceed 30 feet by 36 feet by 16 feet high. A deed restriction or restrictive covenants must be recorded with the Register of Deeds office so that the parcels may not be sold separately. Must follow all other town, county, state, federal regulations, including town driveway permits. The town was unable to hear this request, but I do have a kind of some notes from the town clerk in some of their conditions that they would like to see. I think there may have been an error at the town level with not having this on their agenda in time. We've seen these before, and ultimately whatever other conditions that this committee would put on, it would also be contingent of town board approval. So the town is set to hear this next month. We've seen this before, and we've proceeded with it as such, is that they still are going to be required of town approval. As per the notes from the town clerk, structure not to exceed 30 feet by 36 feet, overall height not to exceed 16 feet, must meet all other setbacks, vegetative cover maintained within those setbacks, ingress and egress off of Poplar Avenue, and all lighting must be down lighting. That is from the planning committee chair, Bon Sutton, and then sent via the town clerk. So if we are wanting to implement those conditions, this committee is the one that actually sets the conditions. These are recommendations from the town. With the town not hearing this yet, I would lead, and if the applicant is agreeable to said conditions, I would certainly have this committee implement those conditions as well. There were 9 additional comment letters sent out to adjacent property owners. 2 were returned with no objections. We own a small parcel next to the above owned Brian and Christine Legge property. They have a place across the street, and I would assume they would like a garage. Why is it necessary to build an oversized 30 by 60 accessory structure on these lots? We are definitely not opposing this permit, though. That is signed Leonard and Donna Potter. And Le Coudray Tribal Government has no issues with the COP approval for Brian and Christine Legge, signed Nita Kemp, Director of Real Estate Services for LCO. That is all.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on the rezone conditional use application. No, sorry, CUP application for number 23-018.
I'll make
Ms.
that
Hessel?
motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel and a second by Ms. Wilson to go into public hearing on CUP number 23-018. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We are now in public hearing on CUP number 23-018. Is the applicant here?
Hello there, I'm the applicant.
Never mind.
Oh,
Hello.
yeah. Go ahead, sir. What do you want to tell the committee?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, committee. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm the applicant. My name's Brian League. You can see my address is Minneapolis, Minnesota. Please don't hold that against me. I grew up in Green Bay. Definitely not a Vikings fan. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, we are looking to build a garage across the street from our building, hopefully to be able to store a boat in the wintertime and be able to store things like a lawnmower and all that kind of equipment that we just don't have space for on the lakeside. I note there are a number of garages similar to this along our strip there on Poplar. I have also mentioned that Bass Lake has been involved, and they plan to be hearing this matter soon. I've spoken with a few people there. I have no objections to any of their restrictions as far as downlighting and trying to keep vegetative cover and building the driveway access on the Poplar side that they'd require. I'm just looking to do things the right way, and I have no objections to any of those restrictions, and I'd be happy to comply with whatever kind of conditions or restrictions that need to apply. So if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer anything to the best of my ability.
You have any questions? Mr. Schulman, Mr. Maestri, you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay.
No, I really don't either, Chairman.
All right, thanks. Is there anybody out there that wants to speak in favor of this CUP?
I have a public comments sheet for Phil Neese.
Unless you have some questions for the town, I'm on the planning committee. The town was able to get it on the agenda. The only thing we did ask the applicant, talking back when they not painted purple. And this student from Green Bay, and that was not happening.
All right. Anyone else want to speak in favor of this CUP? Is there anyone out there that wants to speak in opposition of this CUP? Okay, if none, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 23-018.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Ms. Wilson and a second by Ms. Hessel to come out of public hearing on CUP number 23-018. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are now out of public hearing on CUP number 23-018.
This is the discussion action, the town of Bass Lake, CUP 23-018. Owner Brian and Christine League. Legal description is previously read into record. This request is subject to section 4.26, parent 2 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance for an accessory structure across the town road with conditions as laid out in the staff report that no habitable area be allowed in the structure, no commercial use or operation allowed in the structure, size of the proposed accessory structure not to exceed 30 feet by 36 feet by 16 feet high, that a deed restriction or restrictive covenants must be recorded at the Register of Deeds office, that the parcels may not be sold separately, must follow all other town, county, state, federal regulations and laws, including an additional driveway permit from the town, and that all vegetated cover be maintained within the setbacks, ingress and egress off of Poplar Avenue, and all lighting must be down lighting.
Okay. All right, committee. Ms. Hess,
Chairman, I got a question.
what was that?
Chairman, I got a question for Jay. Jay, is it part of your staff report as well that it be contingent that it passes the town board approval?
Yeah, as subject 4.26, parent 2 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance, it does require town and zoning committee approval. We can certainly list, a condition as part of the zoning committee that it also has town approval, but it ultimately needs it per the ordinance anyways. So I don't know if that needs to be duplicated as part of any condition, but again, in order to be granted the requirements of 4.26, parent 2, it does require both approval processes.
So Jay, you mentioned that this was merely an oversight by the town clerk and not getting it on their agenda last month. Is that true, or was it just trying to be pushed through real quickly and missed the agenda?
No, we have email receipts that it was sent to the town with the timing, and for whatever reason wasn't able to find its way to their agenda. I'd heard that maybe she had gone on vacation and it got kind of stuck in the email there. So stuff happens.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel. Do we have a second?
The motion is to, I just raised my hand and then he talked, so I didn't make the motion.
All right.
I was like, well, thank you,
Okay.
but all right, I make the motion to approve the CUP 23-003. No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. I apologize. 018, thank you. With the conditions put forth by the Sawyer County zoning and with the approval of the town of Bass Lake and findings and facts 1 through 9.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Hessel. We have a second
I'll second that.
and a second by Ms. Wilson to approve the CUP number 23-018. Any more discussion?
Chairman, I'd
Yes.
like to add the conditions from the Plan Commission.
Can we do that?
Yeah, didn't your motion include that though? Yeah.
Well, I thought it. All
Is
right,
that part of the conditions of the town as well?
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any more discussion? If not, Kathy, can we do have a roll call, please?
Stacy Hessel,
Yes.
Kay Wilson,
Yes,
Tweed Schuman,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz.
Yes.
Michael Maestri,
Yes.
all in favor.
Okay.
All right, moving on. This is a public hearing in the town of Lenroot, rezone number 23-003. Owner, the Larson Family Trust, part of the northwest one quarter, the southeast one quarter, lot 4. Tax ID 44618. It is 15.91 total acres zoned forestry 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone the upland area of the northwest one quarter, the southwest one quarter of lot 4 of CSN number 8681 to residential recreational 2, and then to apply for a conditional use permit to allow for 3 dwelling units on that lot. As per my staff report, again, the purpose of the request is to rezone the entire parcel from forestry 1 to residential recreational 2, and then to apply for a conditional use permit to allow for 3 dwelling units on this lot 4 of CSM 8681. The shoreline wetland district overlay is not subject to change as part of this request. The applicant is requesting this rezone on the 15.91 acres from F1 to RR2. This property was recently subdivided last year into 4 separate lots. As part of this certified survey map lot split, a new dwelling was placed on lot 1, which is further to the north. The applicant is now wanting to add 2 additional dwelling units on lot 4. In order for this type of request to be allowed, the property would need to be rezoned to either residential recreational 1 or residential recreational 2 zone district. The RR2 zone district was selected in that there is existing RR2 zone property located immediately to the southwest of this parcel, as to not be viewed as spot zoning. With an approved rezone to RR2, the applicant would have 1 of 2 options to further add additional dwelling units. They either apply for and be granted a conditional use permit for multi-dwelling development, which will be further discussed with the current CUP application, which is subject to be heard next. Or if the property was rezoned to RR2, they could apply for a county subdivision plat and create additional lots. As per the Sawyer County subdivision ordinance, this larger tract of land cannot be split into more than 4 lots within a 5-year time frame, which has already occurred, unless approved by that county subdivision plat. With doing a plat, additional lots could be created and additional dwelling units built on each separate lot. Since the property owner has no intentions of ever selling this land, they selected to go with the conditional use permit route for multi-dwelling development. This would keep the property more of a whole for the established family compound, which is the intent. The F1 zone district requirements would need a minimum of 5 acres and 300 feet of width along the lake, which is called Little Round Lake. Thus, the zone district change is being requested. The Town of Lenroot Comprehensive Plan future land use map in this area shows it as shoreline residential with surrounding forestry residential. The shoreline residential is part of the Town of Lenroot Comp Plan, still references the old lake classification system. Little Round Lake would have been as a class 3 lake, which is referenced by the comp plan, should maintain a minimum density of 1 dwelling per 40,000 square feet of land. As part of the CUP request combined with this rezone, the request would be for 3 dwelling units on a lot containing 500 feet of frontage and approximately 530,000 square feet of land area. If the property was rezoned to RR2, the minimum lot sizes would be 100 feet of width of frontage and 200 feet of depth. The surrounding land area is mixed between Forestry 1 and other RR2 properties with single-family dwellings, which the large majority of the surrounding land is owned by the applicant. As per motion of the town board, motion was approved as a vote of 4-1. No additional comments, signed Carol Stone, town clerk. And there were no additional notification letters sent out in that the applicant is the surrounding property owner. The DNR did submit some additional comments. Per the Larson Family Trust rezone request, note that the rezone from F1 to RR2 does not change the overlaying shoreline wetland district associated with the requirements. The surface water data viewer indicates a mapped wetland in the east portion of the property in question. The department recommends ensuring and using associated with the applicant's request meet applicable shoreline wetland requirements, including remaining outside any wetlands and not creating discharge to any wetlands. Further, given that Little Round Lake is the western border of the property, the department recommends informing the applicant that any associated use with the applicant's request will also need to meet applicable shoreline zoning requirements. That is all.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone dash CUP on number 23-003. Ms. Hessel.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Ms. Hessel and a second by Ms. Wilson to go into public hearing on CUP and rezone number 23-003. All in favor, say aye.
Could you
All
clarify?
opposed,
Sorry.
motion carries.
Could you clarify? Because it just says rezone. It doesn't say CUP.
Right, so the CUP would be heard next.
Okay.
And we started doing these where an applicant is requesting not only a rezone and a conditional use permit. We would hold them back to back, but it's still two subject requests that if the rezone was approved and the conditional use permit was denied, the rezone would still move forward. Subsequently, if the rezone was denied, then the conditional use permit could not move forward. So we do want to hold these as two separate processes. So right now it would just be for the rezone and the
All right.
request be for the rezoning of 15.91 acres from F1 to RR2.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks, Jake. Appreciate that. So, is the owner here, applicant? You like to speak to the committee, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Privileged to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Can you
I'd like
state
to
your
give
name
a
for the
little
record,
background
please?
Information.
Sorry,
Pardon me?
can you state your name for the record, please?
Sure. Kenneth Larson. Barbara and I, my wife, bought the property about 35 years ago. You may or may not know this, but it was owned by the Badger State Girl Scout Camp and was a Girl Scout camp for a number of years until they closed it. We purchased it from the Girl Scouts. This has been a family getaway for a number of years, and just a few personal comments. I hope you'll find this helpful or at least interesting. We have 5 children, 19 grandkids, 2 great-grandkids, and the property has been used by the family in many ways. First of all, we've had 2 of our kids married at the property down by the lake. 2 grandkids have been married down by the lake. So this has been a very important part of the family. They love it. They love Hayward. We also used it in conjunction. We've allowed the Wesleyan Church to use it for baptism. We've, I think, had more than 100 people baptized at the little lake. And that's been meaningful for us as well. Larson family also owns Slumberland, and we have a store here, and we're proud to do that. We've also tried to be involved with the community. We are the current title sponsor for the Birkebeiner, and this will be our 9th consecutive year of supporting the Berkey. We show up, we're part of it, we love it, we think it's one of the great events. We're at a point now where we're trying to figure out how to use the property best for the family. So the additional buildings are going to allow that each of the kids, our children, shouldn't call them kids, they're grown-ups, but each will have a cabin along with us. There'll be 6 cabins that are identical. There's a lodge, which was the former dining hall, and then a couple other small buildings on the property. So it's been referenced in the notes, but I just want to make sure that people understand the conditions of the trust do not allow the property to be sold unless all 5 of the Larson family children agree that it should be sold. And if it's sold, it can't be, the money will not go to the family. It'll go to nonprofit use. So we do not see this being sold to somehow maximize the dollar return to the family or any part of the family. If there's any questions, I would be happy to try to answer them.
Okay. Stacy, you got a question?
Oh.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Schuman, Mr. Maestri.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I do, Chairman.
Okay,
Hi,
go ahead,
Mr. Larson.
Schuman.
Yep, Tweed Schuman here. I'm a neighbor of yours, sir, for as many years as you own the property. Are these buildings constructed already, sir, or is there a plan to construct them dependent on the rezone?
There were 3 cabins that are being redone inside. There is one that's under construction right now, and we're waiting for the building permits for the 2 to start construction on the other 2. So we want them all to look the same exterior, and frankly, they're all the same size and no difference in terms of how they look. So they'll be even the same color, the same material.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Larson, are these existing buildings that were on the property?
3 of them were, and the Girl Scouts had buildings that were activity buildings. If it rained, then they would go inside these buildings and do crafts and that type of thing. We retro them. There was not plumbing in these buildings. They were just buildings. They all had fireplaces. So we have improved them to where they've been year-round buildings. And so now we're redoing the additional 3 and adding just a little bit of a space, about 1,500 feet. So some changes, but they were existing going all the way back to the Girl Scouts, the 3. The 3 are new buildings.
Okay,
Chairman, I guess I got one more question for Mr. Larson.
go ahead, Mr. Schulman.
Thank you. Mr. Larson, will any of these buildings be constructed? I know that there's 2 town roads that go through your property, Meadow Lane and Company Lake Road. Will any of these construction projects be on the other side of those roads, away from your lake side?
Yes, let me try to describe. The current buildings are on the north side of the lake, well back from the lake. Then there's one that's more on the northeast side. And so there will be one between 2 of those buildings, and that's under construction right now. The other 2 new ones would be on the east side of the lake, again, well back around the little road that goes around the lake. So if I'm looking at the map, if you can see the 2 red lines, the 2 buildings that are going to be built are in that area. The other buildings at the north side of the lake, I don't know if they're clear there or not, but it will start from the north side and going around approximately halfway around on the east side of the lake, all 6 buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone out there that would like to speak in favor of this rezone? You want to speak, Mr. Duffy? Okay. All right, is there anybody out there that wants to speak in opposition of this rezone?
I have a public comment sheet from Linda Zillmer.
Linda Zilmer, resident of the village of Birchwood and 4th generation property owner in the town of Edgewater. And so I can appreciate the connection that the applicant's family has to that land. But I can also appreciate that you can't control from the grave, and even though your intentions are good, you cannot make promises for the future. The applicant's address is in Bonita Springs, and the Bonita Springs that I went to as a child in the 60s, honeymooned at in the 70s, and visited family members at in the 90s and the 2000s, that it's not the same Bonita Springs. And I don't care to go back. And the same thing with the paved over farmland surrounding the Chicagoland. I don't know why the applicant, who is fortunate to have, I think, at least 16 parcels and almost 500 acres, would want to rezone from a forestry 1 classification of 5 acres to something that would potentially allow for just 20,000 square foot parcels. Also, in hearing the description, there are more buildings there than was evident in the information that was provided in the application and on the website. And it sounds like they were just looking for 2 additional dwellings. I'd like to reference too that the applicant has the ability to place individual buildings on 5 acre parcels without a rezone or a conditional use permit. And that the DNR's letter said that this parcel particularly is subject to shoreland zoning. Due to the failed zoning ordinance amendment that was recently defeated in the last, well, discussed over almost a year, but defeated recently, the existing shoreland zoning wetland shoreland wetland zoning ordinance still exists. And under section 5.1, it says specifically that only one principal dwelling or habitable structure is allowed per legal lot. So even if this was rezoned to RR2, the applicant could not apply for a conditional use permit because it is a shoreland wetland zoning legal lot and only one principal dwelling or habitable structure is allowed. So I don't feel that at this point this can go forward, whether it's left at F1 or rezoned to RR2, and the applicant has lots of options. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else out there wants to speak in opposition of this rezone?
Not for public hearing slips, and I don't see any hands raised online.
All right. Okay, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 23-003.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Miss Wilson, a second by Miss Hessel to come out of public hearing on rezone number 23-003. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, the town of Lenroot rezone number 23-003, owner Larson Family Trust. Legal description is previously read into record. Purpose of the request is to rezone the 15.91 total acres of F1 to RR2, and then to apply for conditional use permit to allow for 3 dwelling units as part of a multi-dwelling development. The shoreline wetland district overlay is not subject to change as part of the request. And I guess I would just, again, kind of information to the committee. This request is specifically for the rezone. The next case we'll hear is for the conditional use permit, and you really should look at and view them as 2 separate requests.
Yeah, that was my fault. I was reading that up. I should have looked
No,
at
that's fine. Because some of the comments that we had heard, specifically went more so for a conditional use permit, and you're really looking at the rezone aspects as of right now.
Okay. Would anybody go ahead?
I would like to approve the town of Lenroot rezone 23-003.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel to approve. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Yeah, I would second, Chairman.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Schuman. Any more discussion?
I'd like to make a comment. I went to the town of Lenroot meeting as part of my district, and chairman made a motion to deny, which he did not get a second for, and then a motion was made to approve with the comment that we can't figure this out, send it to the county. So I really don't know that that was a full approval of, they just threw up their hands.
Threw up your hands.
I know, but I was there, and so I know exactly what was said. As far as it being spot zoning, which the chairman indicated, the RR2 that's to the southwest is connected to a little piece of property that goes right to the highway, and some of those are RR2. And then way up in the northwest corner, there's a couple of RR2, but all the interior is F1. And I believe it should stay F1. And it would be considered spot zoning if you changed it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel and a second by Mr. Schuman to approve rezone number 23-003. Any more discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can I hear from Supervisor Wilson again about the meeting? I kind of, that was it out. The chairman, the town chairman, motion to deny. And then what was the discussion after, Supervisor Wilson?
The motion to deny did not get a second. And then there was a motion to approve, and they approved that with throwing up their hands because they said, send it to the county and let them decide.
I don't believe that very professional, whatever.
No, right. Jay, and can you please give me your opinion on spot zoning of this then, please?
I would somewhat defer to legal counsel. Spot zoning per se is not illegal, but it should be looked as, a general good for the public per se. But, when we look at spot zoning, you generally look at, the surrounding land use and surrounding area. This property has, dwelling units on it already. It's not used as forestry production where you would technically see more of the forestry zone district. The kitty corner checkerboard immediately adjacent southwest lot parcel is already zoned RR2. I guess I would default to Rebecca to weigh in on spot zoning, but I guess I would not see this as spot zoning.
Rebecca, can we hear from you, please?
You bet. I don't think this is spot zoning either. In addition to the elements that Jay just mentioned, you also look at compatibility of uses proposed under the potentially new zoning designation. And I think that based on what I've heard today, the uses are consistent. And spot zoning, just because you are rezoning to a new designation and there's other different zoning designations surrounding it, does not mean that it's spot zoning. It's not that clear of a legal definition. So again, I would say that this does not qualify as illegal or inappropriate spot zoning if the committee were to recommend the zoning change.
Okay. Thank you. So is there any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question for Jay. What is the current zoning designation by the town? Does the town have a different designation? You had made a comment that under the DNR letter, somebody in public comment said that under the DNR letter, this is subject to shoreline zoning. Can you comment on that in terms of how shoreline zoning interplays with what the county's zoning designation says?
Yeah, so as part of the comp plan of the town of Lenroot, I did not pull up their current land use designation. Generally, they would mirror the county's zone districts with that. This one's a little bit unique in that when the town of Lenroot did their comprehensive plan, they basically took every water feature and did an overlay of 300 feet or even 1,000 feet from every water feature and called it shoreline residential. And that's what its proposed future use is to be as well. This little lake, also commonly referred to as Little Round Lake, has one of those designations around it as part of the comp plan. The DNR letter specifically stated that even though that the zone district overlay is changing, the underlying shoreline wetland district would still be there and would be subject to all shoreline wetland regulations, so setback requirements.
So setback requirements and items of that nature, but not an actual shoreline zoning designation.
Correct. So in conversations with the DNR, it is still considered shoreline wetland, and that is a navigable body of water. And the shoreline wetland district would reference 1,000 feet from any navigable body of water. So it still has an overlying shoreline wetland district associated with it. The underlying F1 zone district is the county's designation of it. That's the one that's subject to be changed. So even though it's being subject to change from F1 to RR2, the underlying shoreline wetland is not to be affected. It still holds a shoreline wetland district. And they wanted to make that point real careful, because you can apply to get rezoned out of a shoreline wetland district, which is a really uphill battle, and we really don't want to see those, because then you're taking something that you could basically fill in the wetlands or fill in the shorelines, and that's not the case here. You're still going to have those shoreline requirements.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? Not, roll call, Kathy?
Kay Wilson,
No.
Michael Maestri,
Yes.
Tweed Schuman,
Yes.
Stacy Hessel,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz,
No.
3-2.
What is it?
3-2.
Okay. All right, motion carries.
Findings of facts. This out. A second to catch up here.
It's up to you, Stacy. If you want to go, you go. Otherwise, you can stay.
All right, moving on. This is the conditional use permit application. Town of Lenroot, CUP 23-016, owner Larson Family Trust, part of the northwest one quarter, the southeast one quarter, lot 4 of CSM number 8681. Tax ID 44618. It is 15.91 total acres. Now with recommended approval from the zoning committee from F1 to RR2. Permit is desired for the placement of 3 dwelling units on lot 4. This is 12.28 total acres above the ordinary high water mark, as subject to section 17.3 parent B, parent 16 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance for multi-dwelling development, subject for the rezone approval and ratification at county board from F1 to RR2. As part of my staff report, the request is desired for the placement of 2 additional dwelling units on the property described. This request is subject for the rezone of our 23003. This request would be for the total of 3 dwelling units and is subject to multi-dwelling development that meets dimensional requirements of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance 17.3 parent B, parent 16. The applicant is requesting to place 2 additional dwelling units on the lot again described. This request is in conjunction with the rezone application that was previously heard. This request would fall under multi-dwelling development. As listed under zone district requirements that require uses authorized by conditional use, they are as follows. Multi-dwelling development or other similar developments, including condominium, hotel, motel, or resort, or other development, which is in the opinion of the Sawyer County Zoning Committee, are of the same general scale and character, does not include conversion of existing properties to different forms of ownership, i.e. condominium ownership, unless additional dwelling units are being proposed by plat or other means. This does not include existing multi-dwelling developments, again, unless additional dwelling units are being created. The proposed development type would be for a family compound type of setting with multiple dwelling units, all meeting minimum lot dimensional requirements. As per the definition included in the zoning ordinance, multi-dwelling development is development, regardless of form of ownership, consisting of 3 or more dwelling units, condominiums, resorts, hotels, motels, or other units structures intended for residential or long or short-term rental uses, of which are located on the same lot. The zoning department has identified some inconsistencies within the zoning ordinance. Firstly, the multi-dwelling development portion does not fully indicate how much land area or lot width is needed for each dwelling unit. Policy of the department has been that each dwelling unit on one lot would need the minimum lot dimensional requirements for each separate unit. In this case, if the property was rezoned to RR2, each unit would need 100 feet of frontage, 200 feet of depth, and 20,000 square feet of land area. The proposal of 3 units on this lot would have 500 feet of frontage, 915 feet of depth, and over 525,000 square feet of land area within those boundaries. Secondly, the definition of lot indicates that only 1 dwelling unit is allowed per lot, yet the definition of multi-dwelling development allows for 3 or more dwelling units on that same lot. These inconsistencies are still waiting ordinance amendments and corrections, but it is the determination of the Sawyer County Zoning Administrator that the proposed conditional use permit request meets the intent of the current Sawyer County zoning ordinance. As by motion of the town board, motion was approved as a vote of 4-1. No additional comments. Signed, Carol Stone, Town Clerk. There were no additional comment letters sent out, and that the applicant is the surrounding property owner. That is all.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. All right, need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 23-016. Ms. Hessel,
I'll make that motion.
Second that.
and we have a second by Ms. Wilson. All in favor to go into public hearing on CUP number 23-016? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are now in public hearing on CUP number 23-016. Ms. You're up again. You got anything more you want to tell us, or TJ, you want to talk?
I was at the town board meeting as well. I don't know that if there was one comment made about turning it over to the county, but I think that the 4 that voted for it, I think we're in favor of it as well. I would like to hear, besides from Jay, I can't ask your legal counsel to give opinion, but I assume Jay asked your legal counsel whether this application could be made. Otherwise, I don't think the zoning committee would have taken it in. So I would assume that at some point in time, you'll get some legal counsel on the record to deal with the issue of audience members saying that it's not legal. I would again note, it's maybe reiterating what Mr. Larson said, that these are not palatial homes. I mean, I think they're 1,400 square feet. They're basically cabins that have been remodeled for the 3 of them, and these other 2 that would be built if this was approved would be very similar, and it's 1 per child that he has. So I think it's an appropriate use. And I think under the circumstances, I think that the committee should approve this based on the information that he's provided, and hopefully based on legal counsel's recommendation that what you're doing is allowed.
Thanks, TJ. All right, would anybody out there like to speak in favor of this CUP? Anyone out there would like to speak in opposition of the CUP? Linda?
Linda Zilmer, Village of Birchwood resident, Edgewater property owner. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I would like to give Attorney Roker the citation for her to look up, and I would like to pause my comments until she's able to have that in front of her. So the citation that I'm looking at is in Sawyer County's Muni Code. I believe it's Appendix B, the Shoreland Wetland Zoning Ordinance for Sawyer County. And you go down to Section 5, minimum lot size. Section 4.1, parent 1, only 1 principal dwelling or habitable structure allowed per legal lot. And I'd like to pause until she's had to look at that, and then I'll explain further.
Rebecca, would you want to comment on that or not?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a look at that. Yeah, it'll just take me a minute to bring up that. I have the zoning code in front of me. I need to pull up the shoreline code. Jay, I don't know if you want to comment while I go back and take a look at this, or if you all want to just sit tight.
Chairman, I got a question for Jay, and I would like him to comment. This is Chairman Schuman. Jay, does this fall under what we sent to the towns recently, and they really didn't address it yet, and we had kind of postponed it at the county level and the zoning level? Could you explain where we're at with this? Does this fall under that portion we were talking about?
Yeah, and it does to an extent. Again, I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies right now in the current zoning ordinances that we have. This doesn't necessarily fall outside that realm in that, again, this applicant is requesting for 3 or more dwelling units as part of multi-dwelling development, and through a conditional use permit approval process, I would view that the ordinances allow an applicant to at least apply for a conditional use permit for this type of development. The changes that we were looking at making, which ultimately, did not pass, was one is that, right now it says for 3 or more dwelling units. There's no avenue for just 2. And that was one of the changes that I was looking at proposing is, okay, you can have 1 and you can have more than 3, but you can't have 2. That was one of the changes that we were looking at making. Also the definition of resorts, and that ultimately I think is what derailed a lot of these ordinance amendments from moving forward. But again, with the current request that we have, if the county doesn't think that we can approve these for whatever reason, these are the ordinance standards that are still existing. Essentially you're closing off any creation then of new resorts, and that was one of the comments that I had brought up several months ago. If we don't allow approval of these types of processes, the county is in essence saying that we don't want resorts ever, because there is no avenue at that point to allow for resorts. I've had several comments and I've asked the audience several times, it's okay, well, how do you even process a resort type of claim at this point? And I was told, use the ordinances. Well, we are using the ordinances here. We're using the standards of multi-dwelling development, which is part of the current zoning code. And this one fits within that realm.
Mr. Chairman, may I help answer that question before Rebecca finds this? With regard to the multiple changes that were made to that ordinance amendment before it went to the towns, there was a last minute one that was made in April that I think pretty much sealed the fate of why that was defeated 0 to 15. And that was the addition of the lot of removing the quote I just gave you, 5.1, as far as only 1 habitable dwelling. And so the current zoning ordinance states that, yes, the underlying zone district, whether it's forestry or whether it's RR2, has certain permitted uses, conditional uses, setbacks. But because of where this lot is located, there's also the additional shoreland protection overlays district that specifically says only 1 habitable dwelling or principal dwelling per legal lot. And I hope Rebecca is able to confirm that. And the reason that this was important and it was put into this is, as Jay mentioned when he gave his staff report, this was originally a Class 3 lake, which provided for better protection against smaller lakes, against higher levels of development. So while Attorney Roker mentioned that there are maybe compatible uses, this is a density issue. And when the legislature took away counties' abilities to have, Sawyer County had 3 lakes classifications and a 4th wilderness lake classification. When the state took that away, we ended up with the existing shoreland wetland zoning district. And the only way to help protect sensitive lakes like this was to include the provision of only 1 principal structure, principal dwelling or habitable structure per legal lot. So this is not allowed per your zoning ordinance.
Go ahead, Ms. Ethel.
I just would like to add point of order when people go over their time limit, but also I have to
Well,
leave.
yeah, I let her stop waiting for Rebecca, but
Sure.
we got to get carrying on here though. Anyway,
I do have to leave, so Mr. Ringheimer is taking
Okay,
on
all
my
right.
voting.
thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
So what we're gonna do is when Rebecca finds that, Linda, she can come on and comment on it.
Yeah, I can, I have it.
Okay,
I just want to go through a couple questions with Jay, and not to treat this like a deposition, but I just want to make clear that we're all set on the facts. So that for this parcel, it's obviously zoned F1, but because it is within the 1,000 feet, you also apply the shoreline ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so coupled with the current definitions in the zoning code, as we've touched on, that were contained in these multiple proposed amendments, and then coupled with, as Ms. Silver pointed out, that section 5.1 in the shoreline wetland protection ordinance. Mr. Larson, unfortunately, is a victim of these inconsistencies in the code. And it unfortunately, if this is goes forward, it would be inconsistent with what your code and your overlay code says. As we look to the shoreline wetland, and that revision, the reason that that revision was added at the 11th hour, if you will, was because it was significant. Because we can't have some sort of inconsistency between the zoning and the shoreline codes. And so it was added to make sure that the revisions to the shoreline code were properly reflecting the proposed revisions to the zoning code. And so that is why that change was made. The legal ramifications of this are significant. And so when I say that, Mr. Larson and his family are victims of this interpretation, it's unfortunate, but this is the situation that the county is in, given the failure of that ordinance revision to move forward. If we didn't have the shoreline overlay, it may be a different situation. But even then, it would still be difficult because you've got a zoning designation, assuming that the revision would, or the change would move forward, to allow the multi-dwelling development that has a minimum of 3 dwellings. Mr. Larson would be forced to build 3 and not build less than 3, which is, within the context of a conditional use permit is sort of an absurd result. But again, based on the legal definition that the county is essentially stuck with in terms of prior litigation and the inability of these clarifications to the ordinance to move forward, this is what we have.
Okay, Chairman,
go ahead.
can I talk? Can I have a question for Ms. Roker?
Yes.
So if we're in the process of amending this zoning code, Attorney Roker, would be proper then and probably more legal for us to postpone this until the amendment has been pushed through or voted on? Or I know that Jay's in the process of coming back to us with some different language. Can you give me your thoughts on that, please?
Yes, I would not make any sort of decision based on an anticipated change in the code. That would not be proper. The applicant could choose to hold the application if the applicant feels it's in their best interest to await a zoning change or that actual legislative change. That's up to the applicant. I would not recommend that this committee make a determination based on an anticipated change in the zoning designation.
Yeah, and if we want to proceed that way, I don't think it's that much of an issue, to postpone or to table any type of decision. But the applicant would still have other avenues at that point then, and really the only other avenue is if the rezone was ratified is to apply for a county subdivision plat and then divide these into multiple lots. And now you can have a dwelling on each lot, as opposed to the multi-dwelling development, which seems to make the most sense to me, but as how that current ordinance reads, especially the one within the shoreline zoning ordinance, only the allowance of one habitable dwelling per legal lot. And without that zoning ordinance amendment being approved, yeah, you almost do have to look at tabling any type of decision pending an ordinance amendment or the applicant to go through a county subdivision plat, which is probably going to be a quicker process at that point. There was.
If legal counsel says that you're not able to accept an application for that type of request,
No,
it shouldn't have been taken in the first place, and that fee should be refunded.
no, I didn't say that, Mr. Duffy.
So what you said?
No, I didn't say that this is not, it was not, that the county was responsible for not even bringing this forward. I think that this is an important discussion for the committee to have. And so I don't think the county acted in any way illegally or any inappropriately for bringing this forward. Frankly, I had a prior conversation with Jay regarding the legal issues surrounding this proposal. But I was not engaged by the county to make a legal determination prior to the application being submitted. If I had, I would have rendered my legal opinion at that point.
But what I'm saying is that if it's not possible to get the conditional use permit, whether an opinion was given or not, having somebody apply for that conditional use permit is something that the county shouldn't have done.
And it's certainly something that the committee can refund application fees if that is something that the committee so chooses to do for the conditional use permit. At this point, you would still want your rezone to proceed as such.
Why wouldn't that fall under the same guidelines though as a CUP? That rezone that we just approved?
Not necessarily, no. No, because you can rezone really anything if ratified by county board. But the conditional use permit, as pointed out, and legal counsel's analysis, if we can't process it because of how the ordinance is currently worded within the shoreline wetland ordinance, yeah, it has some implications that it wouldn't be able to be approved as such. At that point, it would be my recommendation that this committee would table decision.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you want a date certain, but I wouldn't have a date certain because there may not be an ordinance amendment that would be acted on within the next 12 months.
One additional comment, Mr. Chairman, if you will.
Yeah, go ahead.
Keep in mind that, my legal interpretation is just that. It's a legal interpretation. It is up to this committee as to whether you want to accept that legal interpretation. You are not bound by what I'm telling you. You can choose to come to a different conclusion. It's simply my job just to tell you what the risks and benefits are. And this is a tough one, for this committee, again, given the implications of what has occurred in light of the failure of the ordinance change to move forward. And so while I really do sympathize with Mr. Larson, and it's unfortunate that it's in this position, but this is what we have to deal with at this point, given the legal status of the ordinances and the other legal challenges that the county has faced on these ordinances and on this legal question of lots, minimal lot size, dwellings, number of structures, etc.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I got a comment for Ms. Roker.
Go ahead.
Ms. Roker, Chairman Schuman here. I'm just asking you, and I really appreciate the legal advice, and we need that. But if we were to approve this today, it would be going against our own zoning ordinance that's currently in place. I know we have a process of amending that ordinance right now. The time frame Jay says is still out there, maybe a year or more. I don't believe that, but you know, we can't legally approve this going against our own zoning ordinance. So I think it's only practical, and I don't like making a decision when it's the wrong decision, and I know it is. So for now, I think it's more proper, and in my opinion, to postpone this. I would like to give a time frame that we could readdress this when we have a amendment to our zoning ordinance. That is what I would really prefer. So as we move through this agenda, Chairman, I will make that motion that we postpone. But thank you.
Well, we're in a public hearing, though. You can't make a motion on till we get
I
done.
understand.
But
May I ask a question?
I have a light on.
go ahead.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Reagan.
That's okay. That's okay. I just itching to talk. So Jay, can I ask Jay a question?
Yes, go ahead.
We're betting on the come. I agree with Mr. Schuman that we don't have the ordinance in place now. We're anticipating that would be favorable to this applicant. That's what it sounds like. If that ordinance did not pass, you're saying that his next route would be to go individual lots, which would achieve his end result. So for the applicant, he's indifferent, although I agree with his attorney that there's fees in here. I mean, so if we were to postpone it to play by the book, and that, I guess I'm just asking for his fees because it does seem unfair that he came to this and now we're in a conundrum as far as what to do. But ultimately, it sounds like he'll get what he wants. It's just a matter of how that ordinance goes.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if the rezone was to be ratified by county board, which is still the next step, and it still needs to pass, county board. At that point, there would be only two outcomes. One is that the ordinance amendment passes within a timely manner and he can reapply for the conditional use permit or re-up the conditional use permit if it is to be postponed, or apply for a county subdivision plat, because that would be the next process. You wouldn't be able to do this through certified survey maps now because they've done they've done 4 lots at this point. So any further subdivision of land would have to be as a county subdivision plat. That would come back as a public hearing process, as a preliminary plat review and a final plat review. But yes, it achieves the end goal. At that point, now you're making the applicants split lots. So you would have this one larger lot, 12 point some acres of upland, and it would turn into 3 lots. Again, if the rezone is approved.
And which is his most expedient route? I mean, we'll have the ordinance approved, or
At this point, county plat would be the speediest route.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson, do you still want to speak? Okay. I guess if we postpone this, when would it come back?
Right. And that's the hard thing to postpone. And Rebecca can weigh in on that as well. Generally, if you're going to, table a decision or postpone a decision, it's to a date certain. We don't have a date certain because there's an ordinance amendment that's still in limbo. And the first kick at it was denied unanimously by all the towns. Now we're still trying to get together with all the town chairs and bring them into, the room together to kind of look at these ordinance issues and try to make corrections of it so that it reads concisely through both sets of ordinances. But frankly, that's probably not going to be until winter.
Well, then I agree with Mr. Righeimer that we should return Mr. Larson's money to him until we can get this figured out.
No.
It's a shame. Go this far. I mean, he paid his funds and now it's going to have to hope for legality there. So I agree. I think we should refund his money for now. And
Mr. Chairman,
tabled you bring up prior to the meeting. So it would be postponing it, which we can't get to a date. So.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I need to interject here. My apologies. I would not recommend you do that. I understand the predicament that Mr. Larson is in. However, I don't think it's a good practice for the county to return application funds. Because otherwise the county is going to be asked every time the committee does something that an applicant doesn't like. Again, I sympathize with Mr. Larson, but he does have other legal options. He has legal counsel. His legal counsel can advise on what those other options are, and could frankly have advised him before. So I would not recommend that you return funds. I understand and I appreciate the predicament Mr. Larson is in, but I just caution the committee to set a precedent for returning application funds when staff has obviously spent a great amount of time on this. You're paying me to be on this meeting and do the prior legal analysis in the last few days. And that is what, those fees are intended to cover.
Okay.
And I would also encourage the committee to, we're still in public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and it's appropriate to have these discussions as part of the public hearing, but unless there's additional members from the public that would like to speak, I do recommend that the committee move forward and actually, get a motion on the table and continue this very good, robust discussion, but again, just within the next agenda item.
But he made a motion, we're in public hearing, we can't accept the motion. Right?
Excuse me,
Right, but
Chairman,
what
I
I'm
didn't.
saying is,
Yeah, we're still in public hearing.
yep, you could close the public hearing and then move on to the next item. And then have, continue this discussion within the context of the actual item itself. It's not wholly inappropriate that these discussions are being had within the context of the public hearing between legal counsel and the committee and so forth. But unless there is somebody from the public unless there's someone else from the public who wishes to speak as part of the public hearing, I would just recommend that you move forward to your next item. So frankly, it's just a matter of closing your public hearing and moving on to the next item.
Well, I'm going to let Mr. Duffy speak because he's representing the applicant. So go ahead, Mr. Duffy.
Chairman, I completely agree with her when an applicant doesn't get a decision from the committee that they don't agree with. Sometimes you approve conditional use, sometimes you don't. But if you're telling us that legally it's not feasible or not allowable for you to approve it, then my position is the application shouldn't have been taken. And so if the application shouldn't have been taken because there's no way that based on your legal counsel that you can approve it, I don't know if I've ever seen that happen before, but that's the very narrow issue where I think the fee should be returned, because if it's not allowable legally to approve, then the fee should be returned. If you don't like the decision, you should never get your money back because the decision is one way or the other, but if it's not legally allowed for legal counsel, and that's what her opinion is, then the fee should be returned.
I think there would be significant concern too if an applicant made an application and it was refused to move forward based on an anticipatory legal opinion. It's up to this committee as to whether to accept that legal opinion. So I don't know if I would have been comfortable saying, no, don't put him on the agenda to not have this conversation and have this discussion. That's not what happened, so it's speculation at this point. In terms of the process of refunding the fee, if that's something that the committee wants to do, Jay, we just have to make sure that if we go through the proper channels in terms of, I'd have to look at the bylaws and make sure that we're complying with what is required if the committee needs to vote on that refund.
Yeah, and I can do that as well. I know we have refunded fees in the past. Like it's been several years, and I can't remember the specifics of those cases, but I know committee has returned funds previously. But we're still in public hearing at this point. I don't know if you want to call for any other individuals. We do have another hand raised at this point, but it sounds like we're pretty much knowing which route we need to go here. So I'll leave it at the discretion of the chair.
So, yeah. Is there anybody else out there that wants to speak in favor of this CUP?
Martin Hanson.
Martin Hanson, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think we're asking for those opposed, not in favor. Is that correct?
In favor.
I'm sorry, I'm opposed.
Okay, all right. Is there anybody out there that wants to speak in opposition of this CUP? Go ahead, Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been listening to the discussion. I just wanted to, for the record, register my opposition in light of its conflict with the shoreline ordinance. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Mr. Neese.
Bill Neese, and I have sat here for 30 years. I got to find something else to do.
You didn't sit there 30.
No, over there. Anyhow, in fairness, to the applicant, we have done this in rare occasion, refunded the money when there's been a situation not quite the same, no two are similar, but it's happened before. In all fairness to the applicant, I would highly recommend that his be refunded. So.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak in opposition? All right, need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 23-016.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Wilson.
I'll second it, Chairman.
Mr. Regenheimer's got the second, Mr. Schuman. Thank you.
Too bad.
All in favor, say aye to come out of public hearing. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action tunnel land review conditional use permit number 23-016, owner Larson Family Trust. Legal description is previously read into record. Again, this request is for multi-dwelling development for 3 dwelling units on 1 lot, subject to 17.3, parent B, parent 16. Jay, also, now this committee has to decide whether to give back Mr. Larson his funds. I know your department puts a lot of work into this too. But we're gonna have to decide in this discussion whether to do that, right? Or how's we gonna do that? Yeah, I'm still reading through the bylaws right now to see if there's any mention of that. Rebecca, were you able to look forward in that at all for the bylaws? I don't see anything in there that mentions it.
I'm
one way or
looking
the other.
right now. I didn't until just this moment pull it up, but I'm looking.
Honestly, I don't have issues with it. I don't, because this is a unique circumstance in which it's not that we're necessarily denying the conditional use permit. This committee is almost withdrawing it because it can't be heard subject to zoning ordinance requirements.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Jay. And I'll look at that refund point. But in order for that refund to happen, what also is happening is a withdrawal of the conditional use permit application. That we need to make that very clear. And also, I think even though we were on the item of the conditional use permit, we still have the item of the rezone that as of right now is going to the county board next month.
Correct.
So something else for everyone to keep in mind as we're talking through this process. So I just want to make sure that the committee understands that if you vote to refund that application fee, it's also an official withdrawal of the conditional use permit application. Jay, would that be your understanding as well?
It would, and it would just be for the conditional use permit. The rezone would be to move forward and process through county board for final ratification. And that really is kind of one of their next steps to get to the ultimate goal. Is if it was rezoned, then A, you can wait for an ordinance amendment that may or may not pass, or B, apply for a county subdivision plat to chop that one would potentially be a RR2 zone property into 3 new lots.
Yeah, and I will just reiterate that the applicant has other legal options that can be looked at.
So if the applicant is gonna have to come forth and reapply, can he use these funds towards the next time that he has to come in and reapply instead of having to pay again? Is that?
Yeah, that would be something we'd work out internally. You know, if the applicant wants a refund, we can, you know, proceed with the refund, but there would be other fees that would be for whether it was for a subdivision plat or whether they wanted to reapply for the conditional use permit if and when an ordinance amendment was to be approved, so that we could have some type of balance on file for them as well, right? So that would be something internally that I work out with our accounting administrator.
Okay.
Can I say
I
something?
guess,
At this point, no, unfortunately, you cannot, as we are in discussion action. Oh, this is Mike. Is that Maestri?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I'm sorry to add confusion, but I frankly think that we're going to be slaves to this permanently inconsistent zoning ordinances. And I would prefer, and certainly I feel it's necessary to put it on the record, that we ought to be more muscular in supporting Jay's interpretation that this applicant is wanting to do something that is in line with what the county wants to permit. And I think we ought to go forward and approve his application and let the chips fall where they may. Sorry to be a nuisance with this, but that's what I think.
Thank you, Mr. Maestri, but I'm not so sure that's the way the route we want to go. I mean, there's a legality here. And I don't think we want to put that in jeopardy and then end up into a lawsuit or whatever.
Well, again, I mean, this is just to showcase where these ordinances are messed up and why they need to be cleaned up
Exactly.
and why I've tried to clean them up, but they weren't able to because the towns, for whatever reason, didn't like it. So, I mean, regardless of whether or not we should allow these types of multi-dwelling developments in the future or not, that's fine. If you don't want to just shut them completely down and they can't be done, that we can go that route, but we still need to codify it in the zoning ordinance and get rid of multi-dwelling development altogether then. Otherwise, make the amendments to allow for multi-dwelling development. There's one or the other, because right now they're mixing and it just does not work. So.
Amen. Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Schuman here, and I'm ready to make a motion, sir, that we postpone this CUP application. I don't know, Jay, if I could get a time frame from you. I know you're saying it could be a year out. I think we could get it done sooner than that. But this amendment needs to be made to our ordinance. Otherwise, as all of you have mentioned, we're going down a road that we'll never get through. So my motion is to postpone this CUP application. Well, initially until we can get this amendment through the towns and back to us. So I'm going to say postpone it for 1 year, the CUP application. And if anyone wants to give me some other language and the length of time frame that we postpone it, I'm open to that as well. But that's my motion for now.
1 year.
Right. So there's,
What's that?
I guess I would wait until a second and then I would have some other comments if there was a second.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schulman and a second by Mr. Maestri to postpone the CUP 23-016.
Right. And I think that's a fair route to go, but I would also potentially add if Mr. Schulman would like to change his motion that if the applicant wishes to withdraw prior to that, funds be reimbursed in the amount of $350 for the conditional use permit application. But that would come from a withdrawal of the application because we have not made a final determination that the applicant could still withdraw at this point, and that motion would also include reimbursement of funds for the conditional use permit application.
So you don't think we could get him in on September's agenda?
No, for an ordinance amendment? No, I mean, we're 4 or 5, if not 6 months easy for ordinance amendments.
Just thought I'd try.
Yeah.
Jay and Chairman, Jay, what if we do get this amendment through the towns and we act quicker than a year? Can Mr. Larson can we bring this back then within that year, or do we have to wait 12 months? Because that's the time frame I was looking at. I'm really not looking at returning his funds yet. I mean, he applied for this, and we have our job to do now with amending that ordinance. So I'm more in favor of getting through this, getting the amendment in front of us, and then moving forward with his application.
Rebecca, you want to comment?
Yeah, I was just looking up in the bylaws and then also in our in Robert's rules in terms of when you postpone to a date certain, what is the reasonableness element of it? Because if, certainly you can, I mean, that's how some bodies, get rid of things forever. They just, motion to table it for 10 years. Obviously 1 year is not 10 years, but given the circumstances that we're looking at, effectively the committee is tabling, postponing to a date certain in order to have the ordinance revised. In light of that, is it appropriate to do that for 1 year? I think you can do 1 year. I would say it would be more appropriate, again, just looking at the reasonableness of all of the circumstances, do it for a shorter period of time. And then if that within that shorter period of time, the ordinance has not been passed, then it can be postponed to a date certain thereafter.
I would think 6 months would be plenty. We don't need to go a year.
I would think 6 months would be
out by then.
reasonable given the circumstances. And then in terms of the question regarding can it be brought back sooner? So let's say that the ordinance does pass within 6 months. It could be brought back. I believe that would fall under, we would have to frame that as bringing it back to the committee for reconsideration of that motion of 6 months. So yes, it could get back to the committee, and Jay would obviously communicate with the applicant and so forth, and with you, Mr. Chairman, to get that back on the agenda. But from a procedural standpoint, it's just a little bit more complicated. But I also think that if you do it in 6 months, you're going to have a better idea of where the ordinance is, and then also you're going to have, hopefully the applicant will have, a good understanding of what other options are and other legal options are to accomplish what the family wants to accomplish without having to, be the patsy, if you will, of this unfortunate legal situation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roker.
With the 6
Mr.
months?
Chairman, yes. Yes, sir. I would amend my motion to postpone and reconsider in a time frame of 6 months, please.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schuman and a second by Mr. Maestri.
For the record, Maestri, would you second that amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a second by Mr. Maestri, and then we amended it from 1 year back to 6 months. Any more discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Duffy.
You're talking about with withdrawal and reimbursement of funds?
No, I did not include that.
Okay. Motion in a second.
If
We
the
have a motion
applicant,
and a second on the floor.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if the applicant wishes to withdraw and proceed with the request of reimbursement of funds, the committee would need to approve that reimbursement. So if the committee is so inclined, you could amend your motion to include the stipulation that if the application is withdrawn, then the funds can be reimbursed.
Mr. Schuman did
if the
not want
maker
that
of the
included in
motion-
his motion.
Right, and that was not in the motion, but I'm just saying, I want everyone to understand that if the application is withdrawn, this committee, based on the motion that's on the table now, is not agreeing to reimburse the funds. The committee has to act in order to reimburse those funds. I just want to make sure that everyone, including the applicant and Mr. Duffy, understand that.
Well, that's where this should be made in this committee right now. Right?
Should, but yeah, Mr. Schuman as the motion maker did not include that and didn't want it included, which is fine. The applicant can always withdraw, they just wouldn't be released their funds. So if you want to withdraw and apply for a county subdivision plat, you still have that route if the rezone is ratified.
Kathy,
Or
read Mr.
the
Schuman.
applicant could withdraw and then request a refund of the funds to be determined by the committee at the next meeting. You could do
Okay.
it that way as well.
So you can come back and argue that.
Correct.
I'm gonna read Mr.
Okay, the first motion was to postpone for 1 year,
1 year.
second by Maestri. Wait for the refunds. Discussion went, amended it to postpone 6 months, and Maestri seconded.
Okay. All right. So is there any more discussion? Not, let's do a roll call, Kathy. Oh, go ahead, Mr.
I don't, I guess I'm just want to make sure I'm clear. So I understand the motion. The refund, that is not going to be made as a decision here, but you mentioned that could be made at a later time as a separate item. Okay. So this vote is separate from the refund. Thank you.
Okay.
Apparently the refund's not gonna happen. It's not in the motion.
As of right now, but the
As of right
applicant
now.
could come back under new business and ask for a releasing of a refund of the conditional use permit, and we would have a separate vote on that at a different meeting date.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. All right. All right, roll call, Kathy.
Okay.
Tweet Schuman,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz.
Yes.
Michael Maestri,
Yes.
John Righeimer,
Yes.
Kay Wilson,
Yes.
all in favor.
Okay.
Request a break, Mr. Chairman. I request a break.
Oh,
Before we
sure.
move on.
All right, we're gonna, sorry. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna get back to order here on our zoning committee. Yeah.
Yes, let me find my place here, get through this, but ultimately this is a public hearing in the town of Bass Lake, rezone number 23-004, owner Pinewood Properties LLC, part of the north one half of section 4, part lot 1 of CSM number 4022. Section 4, Township 40 North, Range 9 West, tax ID 43495. It is 73.18 total acres, zoned agricultural 1 and commercial 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone the agricultural 1 portion to residential recreational 2, and then to apply for a conditional use permit for an RV campground resort. As per my staff report, purpose of the request is to rezone all agricultural 1 upland area excepting the commercial 1 zone district area, leaving approximately 53.17 acres to be rezoned to residential recreational 2. Purpose of the request is to rezone from the Ag 1 to the RR2 and then to apply for a conditional use permit for a 160 site RV park resort. The shoreline wetland district overlay is not subject to change as part of this request. For rezone 23-004 in the town of Bass Lake, the applicants are requesting to rezone the approximately 53.17 acres of Ag 1 to RR2. The actual parameters of the campground will be further discussed within the CUP request, which will be heard next. The property consists of the Old Hayward National Golf Course, The golf course has been out of operation for approximately 10 years now. Majority of the existing trees on the property have already been removed, and the likelihood of this being converted back into a golf course would be difficult in that the greens and fairways have been left go to seed. And in order for a golf course operation to occur here again, it would need to be entirely reconstructed. The nearest RR2 zone property in relation to this property is a 17.36 acre parcel immediately adjacent to the southwest of the parcel. There are also a few other smaller parcels on the corner of Fun Valley Road and State Highway 27 that are also zoned residential recreational too. Even though this property is currently zoned agricultural 1, according to the NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Society Web Soil Survey, the soils listed in this area would not be included as part of prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance. NRCS further lists these soils of having very severe limitations that reduce the choice of plants or that require very careful management or both. The town of Bass Lake shows this area as generalized existing parks and recreation land use as per the town comprehensive plan, with the future land use category described as parks and recreation. Per the town of Bass Lake comprehensive plan, existing land use under parks and recreation lands under privately owned lands may include golf courses, campgrounds, marinas, shooting ranges, etc. The existing surrounding use outside of this area is woodlands and medium density residential. Several previous requests for rezones and conditional use permits have been heard for this property over the last few years. This request is now slightly different in that the rezone request is just for the land located within the town of Bass Lake and not in the town of Hayward. Furthermore, the property owner now has done an additional certified survey map, which has lotted off an additional 14.34 acres on the east side of the property. This newly created lot is not part of the rezone request and is to remain agricultural 1 zoned. By doing this lot split, any campsite would not only need to be 75 feet from the property line, which the applicant also owns, but also an additional 300 feet, which is the width of the newly created lot. The recently split 14.34 acre parcel may eventually become a perimeter golf hole or holes, but this would require a new CUP as the existing CUP for the main golf course has now been discontinued. Previous requests of this type of rezone have been approved at the town levels and zoning committee levels. However, as part of the last rezone case in 2022, it was denied at the county board level under a supermajority vote as the adjacent property owners had submitted a petition to protest on the proposed rezone request, which required a 3/4 vote at the county board level. By action of the town board, motion was approved. Justin Hall, Chairman, Marshall Savitsky, Supervisor, Don Adams, Supervisor. There is a large findings of fact sheet here, which I will read into record. This is per the Town of Bass Lake Comprehensive Plan Committee. Rezone 23004 analysis from agricultural 1 to residential recreational 2, except for area currently zoned C1. Approval is conditional on the approval of conditions listed in attachment 1 on CUP 23019 without change unless approved by the town of Bass Lake by Sawyer County or by Sawyer County Zoning Committee. Findings of fact. The rezone not be contrary to public interest and would be in compliance with the spirit and intent of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance in the town of Bass Lake Comprehensive Plan, section 8.10. The rezone would be consistent with the town of Bass Lake Comprehensive Plan description of land uses, section 8.4, parks and recreation. Recreation lands under public and private ownership. Publicly owned recreational land may include town parks, nature preserves, or athletic fields, boat landings, campgrounds, etc. Examples of privately owned lands may include golf courses, campgrounds, marinas, shooting ranges, etc. Prior use of a public golf course and proposed use as a campground. That's finding of fact number 1. Number 2, the rezone would be consistent with the town of Bass Lake Comprehensive Plan existing land use map 8.1. The existing use of the property is park and recreation. Prior use is a public golf course and proposed use as a campground. The district also provides for residential development in addition to recreational oriented services, which also would not be contrary to public interest if campground is not developed. Number 3, the rezone would be consistent with town comp plan, future land use map 8.4. The existing use of the property is parks and recreation. Prior use is a public golf course and proposed use as a campground. The district also provides for residential development in addition to residential oriented services, which would also not be contrary to public interest if a campground is not developed. Number 4, the rezone would be consistent with the comprehensive plan, economic development section 6.8, tourism impact to local economy. Sawyer County is impacted greatly by the number of visitors to the county. These visitors include persons traveling through the county or staying at their second seasonal homes. In 2013, it was estimated that 78.4 million was expended within the county by travelers. The net result of these expenditures is the realization that numerous jobs were created to support the traveling public. A campground in an area designated as parks and recreation would be consistent with section 6.8. And then as part of conclusions of law, number one, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the rezone will not be detrimental to or endangering the public health, safety, comfort, or welfare because it would not be damaging to the rights or others' property values as an existing public recreation use of the property. The district also provides for residential development in addition to recreational oriented services, which would also not be detrimental to endanger the public health, safety, comfort, or welfare if a campground is not developed. Number two, the uses, values, and enjoyment of the property in the neighborhood for purposes already permitted shall not be in no foreseeable manner substantially impaired or diminished by the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the rezone as it has existing public recreational use of the property and surrounding area has multiple zone districts, including commercial 1, rural recreational 2, forestry 1, and agricultural 1. The district also provides for residential development in addition to recreational oriented services, which may not be contrary to the uses, values, and enjoyment of the property in the neighborhood if the campground is not developed. Number three, the establishment of the rezone will not impede the normal or orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the zone district as it has an existing public recreational use of the property and surrounding areas of multiple zone districts, including C1, RR2, F1, and A1. Number four, the rezone will conform to all applicable regulations of the district in which it is to be located. It would not destroy prime agricultural land. It would be compatible with the surrounding uses of the area as the existing public recreation use of the property and surrounding zone districts, C1, RR2, F1, and A1. The adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress or egress so designated as to minimize traffic congestion on public roads because it would not create traffic or highway access problems since the use of an existing public golf course entering on Fun Valley Road has been utilized for numerous years. There were 13 additional comment letters sent out. One was returned with objections. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter to express my strong opposition to allowing a campground to be built on Fun Valley Road in Hayward. The proposed campground would cause many hazards to myself, the neighborhood, and wildlife. I bought my home in 2021 and it is my retirement home. I have asthma and allergies. Therefore, constant campfire smoke would really harm my health as I am only 200 feet away from the proposed campground. The noise from the campground will disturb my peace and could potentially put a vulnerable senior citizen in an unsafe environment. My other concern is property value. I have been told by professionals the campground will bring down the property value of my home 20 to 30%. The traffic caused from the campground will disturb the peace and quiet that the neighbors have sought out and have bought their homes in just a short time ago. Not only will it disturb humans, but it will also disturb wildlife as well. We have all sorts of wildlife in our area and they'll be forced to go in a new location due to the campground traffic. Please consider these concerns as a reason to deny the campground, as the campground would negatively impact my quality of life, my neighbors' lives, and lives of the wildlife in the area. Larry Watt. That is all.
Okay, thanks, Jay. All right, need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 23-004.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Wilson, second by Mr. Ringheimer to go into public hearing on rezone number 23-004. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We're now in public hearing. Bodenschott.
Thank you all for meeting with us.
today to discuss our project. My name is Adam Bodenschatz with Pine Ridge Properties LLC. We are the owners of the now, I guess, not in use Hayward National Golf Course. And as Mr. Kozlowski mentioned, we are applying for a rezone for 160 site RV park, which consists of about 57 acres, excluding the commercial. With 160 sites, it's about 2.5 to 2.8 gross sites per acre. We will be having to apply for county and state approved wastewater treatment systems. The proposed layout of the new RV sites, recreational, stormwater retention, wastewater treatment, all that stuff is on the front, and I'm happy to go over where these specific areas are a little bit later in the presentation. All of our work for this project is going to have an emphasis on maintaining our natural Northwoods rustic atmosphere throughout the entire project, meaning utilizing the sites within the trees, any recreational facilities, giving everyone a Northwoods feel. We see this project happening in 3 phases. First phase is going to be all the permitting, engineering, and approvals before we can even break ground. With that, we'd also be doing a revamp of the clubhouse and installing the roads, utilities, and recreational facilities needed for sites about 1 through 6. Phase 2 would be a continuation of everything, additional utilities, roads, recreational facilities as we need to, and somewhere around 61 to 120 sites right in that phase 2 area. And then phase 3, the remainder of the sites, utilities, and roads. Some positives to the community that we believe will happen are going to be increased revenue for the entire community. We are a tourist-based economy, and quite frankly, the more people that are in our area brings more money into our area and helps us not only survive but thrive. We are that's the majority of our economy. The project is in line with the town's comprehensive plan, as read in the staff report. As far as impact, development impact, RV resorts are, RV parks are quite low impact compared to much larger installations such as hotels, commercial sites, housing, larger housing developments, and all that. We install utilities, water, sewer, and electric, but that's about, and sanitary treatment systems, but that's about it. There's hardly any concrete laid, very little earth disturbance. We were able to use the majority of the property and its terrain as needed, less the stormwater management and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we don't have to do much. We are resurrecting long abandoned recreational area. It's been sitting there for almost 10 years doing nothing. And we believe that it needs to be utilized. And also, there is as everyone knows, seems these days, rapidly emerging vacation trend towards RVing. This property is within our Hayward area, we feel one of the most prime locations for such a resort, I guess. We need to have quality built installations and projects like this to stay ahead of the curve and fulfill that need for our area. In conclusion, I guess the RV industry has seen a tremendous shift towards lower density and much, much larger site alternatives. We're not laying them in there like bacon anymore. I mean, there's a lot of parks that were very, very very small, close quarters. As you can see on my map here, a lot of these sites are almost the size of traditional building sites for a regular home, mainly in the middle of the map. On average, we're about 2.8 sites per acre, which is just over, I guess, maximum of 5 per acre is what's in the county ordinance, so we're doing almost half that. Let's see here. So with these larger sites and the way that we have this laid out, not only are there going to be, I guess, less people than what we could have, but with less people on a property such as this, they're not going to be quite the demon that people make RV parks out to be. When you have 53 acres over 160 sites, it might be hard to see on paper, but when you get out there in the expanse of the property, it's a lot of land. And as far as spaced out as these sites are, I don't think that there will be much problem. Again, I'll reiterate that we're living in a recreation tourist-based economy, and we would be fulfilling part of the need of our county that we need for our overall success. I mean, I don't see any other industry coming in here and taking place of tourism. So with that added, I guess, tourist base that we'd be inviting, we'd have added employment for our area. We'd be utilizing local contractors for all of our installations. More customers for our area businesses to not only survive, but to continue to thrive in this economy. And then also, in some cases, we would be offering short-term housing on a seasonal basis for our seasonal employees. So with that said, we all believe, or at least my father and I believe, that our project location is a premium option for the expansion of the RV industry in our community by creating a quality layout and a quality property for everyone to come and visit our area. Attached, we have a proposed layout map. We have soil tests that were done by Butterfield Inc. Primarily to, I guess, assure us that the soils are consistent with having conventional septic systems. And also our engagement letter with NWBE, who's a civil engineer in town for doing wetland delineation and stormwater management and overall layout of the property. I also added in there, one of the conditions for the town of Bass Lake, Bass Lake's approval was for us to utilize, they call them smokeless fire pits. And if you haven't used one, you should try it. They really, really do eliminate a ton of smoke, and that would be required on every single site of ours to help address the smoke problem. Thank you for your time.
I got one question for you, just for my information. Are them going to be permanent campsites where there's campers there year round?
Well, we're not allowed to have business open year round. We'll have seasonal sites, yes, but it'll be a combination of seasonal and transient camping.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
The campers themselves, or at least some of them, will remain year round, but it won't be in operation.
That's correct.
During those time frames as specified by ATCP 79.
Okay. Great.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for the owner applicant. Mr. Bodenschatz, Tweed Schuman here. Adam, how is this different from a year ago when you came to us? I think I started to read that. I don't have access to all the maps, Adam. I'm sorry. I'm on vacation right now in South Dakota, but I have the agenda in front of me and I have everything I feel I need. But I have some questions on your new map. So you've taken out the town of Hayward section, sir, that you applied for a year ago?
Yes.
That is true. And what was the reason for that?
The reason for taking it out of town of Hayward, number one, we were getting a lot of opposition from the town of Hayward, and it also reduced the park size. And we drastically reduced the RV park size from 197 to 160.
Yeah, that was going to be my question too, Adam. So you're down to a 160 site, correct?
Yes, sir.
And 2.8 sites per acre. And our county limit, Jay, is 5 per acre?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Adam.
Yep.
Okay. Any more questions? Mr. Maestri, you have any?
No, thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak in favor of this result? Mr. Neese?
Phil Nace, Town of Bass Lake Planning Committee. For short version, for 7 years, we've dealt with this piece of property, and in each instance, they were campground applications. The first two never got past town, never got past, I'm sorry, can you hear me? There we go. Got past the town because they were not going to be compliant with what we envisioned. The last two, including, and this will be the second time that the Bowden Share, they've come in front of us. We have looked and looked at this, we struggled with it, and it is, as far as we can see, the best use of the property going forward. It's in our comprehensive plan. The reason for the long dissertation that we sent in, because we spent a lot of time, the town did, I'm speaking for the town, and making sure that if we were going to approve this, we were making the right decision. And so we went through every legal conclusion of the laws, the whole thing. All of the objections that we heard over the last 7 years, which you'll hear when the cup comes up, if it gets that far, how we've tried to make sure it was addressed to that the neighbors, including the smokeless pits, which luckily that came up in the last 7 years, you can get those. So anyway, I just wanted to explain where the town is coming from.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else want to speak in favor of this CUP? Anyone out there would like to speak in opposition? Jay, what do you got?
First, I have Kathleen Nath.
I'm sorry if I seem to move slowly, but
That's
after
okay.
sitting at meetings, my arthritis gets to me. I don't have Mr. Bodenschatz additional maps or
Excuse
whatever.
me, ma'am, want to state your name and address, please, for the
Yes,
record?
my name is Kathleen Nath. And I live, well, I have a P.O. Box 738, Hayward, Wisconsin, okay? But I've lived in the area here for 42 years in town of Hayward. And the problem that I see is the junction of Hayward, town of Hayward, with the town of Bass Lake, which I feel Mr. Bodenschatz is attempting to address. But now the scrolling through of the meeting there, I'd like to look at the map specifically because you say that you have cut down the number of campsites, but I'm curious, and no mention to me was made of the campgrounds in relationship to Spring Creek. Okay. And I wish that I could have heard something of that because that was a topic of concern, I know, about a year ago, at least to me. I don't know if people realize that first of all, Spring Creek, it may be considered small, but it isn't in the spring. And it drains into the Nemacolin River, which is a part of the St. Croix National Scenic Waterway. And in 1968, that was created, and it's one of 8 in the whole nation. So I think I'd like to hear more from Mr. Bodenschatz and their plan with regard to the impact of the water, because the water of a campground and the water tables, then it influences the people of the area, the homeowners of the area, in terms of going up and down. So too does the sewage. And he's commented, well, we're abiding by whatever. I'm not necessarily clear that that's been addressed by him in the past, but I won't bring that up either. The campground policing aspect. When you have 160 campground units there, that's going to impact the police arrangement for not only, well, it's all of Sawyer County, really. But I mean, you have now people with campers, you have people with ATVs going down roadways or making their own pathways through the property. And it's because of the fact that the town of Hayward adjoins what's being done here that my concern is, because even though the campgrounds may not be on the town of Hayward part, the trails may be utilized or eventually created and utilized by the ATVers, etc.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes is up. Can you finish it up quickly?
Yes. I think too, there has to be comments made about the bandwidth affecting the present homeowners in terms of network accessing the the network series and also the electrical power. But I am concerned about, as I say, sewage and water drainage.
Thank you, ma'am.
I do have some additional public comment slips. I do want to make mention to the audience, though. Right now, the case that we have in front of us is specifically for the rezone. Now they are, linked together in that if the property is rezoned to residential recreational 2, then a conditional use permit for a campground can be applied. But as of right now, we are specifically holding the public hearing on the rezone aspects. The conditional use permit will be held next. With that being stated, next I have is a Ken Millender.
You have 3 minutes, sir. State your name and address, please.
Ken Millender, 16023 West Fun Valley Road. So from what I understand, there isn't any rules or laws in protecting the people by disruption of water going from one place to another in rezoning that can cause harm to other people or the environment. I've been studying PFAS and forever chemicals for like 15 years since I developed cancer from it. This isn't the first time I brought this problem up to the board. So I'm going to bring to you a few highlights that just happened in this last year. Okay, several years of toxic septic dumping on the fields on Fun Valley Road has created an environmental hazard that affects area wells and wildlife. Several discussions with scientists and hydrologists throughout the U.S. agree this is a health risk that needs to be addressed. Supporting a high-capacity well on said site, a proposed RV park will enhance the spread of the contaminants to include more wells and many more miles of polluted aquifers. According to scientists, dumping septic waste on frozen ground spreads the toxins to a much broader area and should not be allowed to happen. Fun Valley Road has been flooded over 300 yards of roadway during the springtime process every year and ends up flowing in and out of the south of the existing old golf course, except for just 3 years, since dumping on frozen ground. Dumping also occurred during the summer for many years in the past. Also important to mention, the aggressive underground spring very near to the dump site feeds into Little Spring Lake. The flowing aquifer is confirmed by reliable sources to be one of the most aggressive in the county. According to my sources, the Wisconsin DNR should have never offered permit for raw sewage dumping on such location. So you've noticed on the media has covered a lot of forever chemicals, also known as PFAS. Just recently, of April of this year, a retired Wisconsin hydrologist has gone public, warning the residents of over 7,000 septic dump sites to be very toxic to the health of the people and environment as water path. A couple years ago, UW-Madison conducted a study that listed over 400 wells that had unsafe drinking water due to forever chemicals and even found different kinds of bacteria within the wells that are harmful to whoever drinks the water. On March 14, 2023, the EPA released a statement. The communities across the country have suffered far too long for ever-present threat of forever chemicals. The goal is to prevent tens of thousands of forever chemical-related illnesses and make a major step towards safeguarding all of our communities with these dangerous contaminants. This year, the Biden administration has a message to all polluters that's simple. After poisoning your workers and neighbors for decades, it's time to make our public health, not for profits, our top priority. Laws to hold polluters accountable. The Biden administration has set aside $10 billion to help communities address to clean up PFAS.
Sir, your 3 minutes are up.
It's not fair.
You'll also have a chance to speak during the conditional use permit. Next I have is Linda Zomer.
Linda Zilmer, Village of Birchwood resident, Edgewater property owner, have been here for most of the previous iterations of these proposals. And speaking primarily to on the rezone part, I want to bring up the process. When this application first appeared in the zoning office, I went in there to look at the materials that were there. I would have considered that application incomplete, not ready to go to the towns, and not ready to set a public hearing date. There is no, other than some pictures and the brief description on the application page, there was no mention about the water source, the water supply, the hookups for sewer systems, the septic lines or sewer lines, you would call them, for the units, or how the waste would be treated. That's important because having sat here and listened to the neighbors express their concerns in previous years, this wasn't a brand new application. The applicants knew what the concerns were, and yet the new application did not address any specifics other than a layout of campsites. There was no identification of where septic fields would be. It has been established that this is a very shallow water level at this location. And so now just not land applying septic, but you're having, I attended the Town of Bass Lake Comprehensive Plan Committee meeting, and there they said they planned maybe 6 or 7 just conventional septic sites. So that means it's just draining into the ground at high water levels. And I also want to commend the town of Bass Lake for coming up with the extensive list of things that Jay read into the record, because at the Plan Commission meeting, there was no discussion of that. It was primarily sitting down with the applicant to go over what conditions with, you know, for the presumed approval of this rezone and CUP. And that, again, is unfortunate due to the timing of when a public notice goes in the paper and a town hears it, and then the quick turnaround to you folks here. You know, when you look at this site, I understand it's also not been deemed feasible to build residential properties on due to the water conditions. Some properties should maybe just be allowed to replenish the groundwater, serve as buffers, and not be rezoned for an intensive use. So with regard to the rezone, agriculture or forestry might be more appropriate here. And as far as the neighbors, you know, they say, you're saying Hayward is a tourism area. No, a study done a few years ago by the Sawyer County Economic Development Corporation and UW Extension really focused on the second residence nature of our economy. People come here to vacation, but the real benefit to the area is that people move here, they build homes, they stay here, they become part of the community. That is the economic driver. Thank you. So to say tourism, that's impacting those people who moved here for a quality of life. Thank you.
Next I have Ellen Damask.
State your name and address, ma'am, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Ellen Domask, and I live at 16025 West Park Road in Hayward. Mr. Chairman and Zoning Committee members, I'm only going to address the rezone issue, but I will come back with the CUP conditions that are being applied for. Even though this has been brought forth to the County Zoning Committee, where we live and all of our neighbors in the township of Hayward, we were never given notice that this was going to be happening because we do not live within that 300 feet allotment of where the proposed campground is going to be developed, although all of our backyards are on the existing old National Golf Course. When my husband and I purchased our property 6 years ago, the first thing we did, we specifically checked to see how the property, which was then the old National Golf Course, was zoned. And at that time, we realized it was zoned agricultural. Perfect. We didn't feel we would have any problems or issues coming up that would affect the value of our home or the quality of the life that we chose to live here in Hayward. So even though you can hear all the pros that go with this, it's going to really impact the Sawyer County in general and all the tourism and everything else that's going to happen. Just because a property lays dormant, does that justify rezoning it to become a 160 unit RV park? And with so much public opposition, it's like, I don't understand. How can you rezone a piece of property that large that is laid that dormant just because one businessman saw an opportunity to turn it into something that really is not going to benefit any of the residents that live around it? Oh, it might benefit a few that want to seasonally park an RV, or those that might want to come in and maybe seasonally work here. But how is that affecting the other parts of our industries here in Sawyer County? Hotels, motels, resorts. I mean, are they at full capacity right now? Are the campgrounds, has anybody done a study to see if they're at full capacity right now? I guess I just don't see how justifying the rezone of this property is going to benefit us or actually the county. I just don't see it. But that's my opinion as a resident in the township of Hayward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, is there anyone else out there would like to speak in opposition of this rezone? Okay, Mr. Bodenschat, I'm gonna let you respond to these, what the water situation is for these people.
Are there any specific questions that I can answer for you before I kind of speak about what I think should be answered?
I other than the ones that they were bringing up about the water, how you're gonna protect the
Sure.
water and stuff.
Yep. So as part of the permitting process for any development of this size, we're required to not only do stormwater management engineering, state approved stormwater management engineering, but also wetland delineation. And two separate issues, two separate engineering firms, and in the engagement letter from NWBE, they partner with a company called Ecosystems for wetland delineation. That's all they do. So as far as Spring Creek is concerned, that's going to be their primary focus on what the limits are of how close, I guess, we can or cannot get to Spring Creek. As far as sewer treatment systems, I'm not a soil testing expert. That's why I hired Butterfield Inc., who is a certified soil tester, and they install septic systems all over, I would say, the majority of the counties surrounding Sawyer County. And we have to rely on them being certified and licensed to do so, to tell us, and also county permitting with at the county zoning office, Eric Wallauer, and then also state approved systems as well. That's beyond that. I'm not sure how much professional information I can give anybody, but we do need to get all these proper permits and engineering done before anything can happen. If it's not suitable, it's not suitable, but that's not for me to decide. I ask for what I want and they tell me, hey, yes, it can be done here. No, it can't be done over here. Those sort of items. As far as groundwater and where our water supply is going to be coming from, the property has already been a golf course with irrigation systems that had been operating from the mid-90s. It was developed originally. And as far as well capacity goes, there's already, I think it's an 8-inch commercial well on the property, which I've been told by Butterfield Inc., who's also a well driller, that is beyond capacity for supplying any such development of this size. other than as far as response to the, I guess, the sewage dumping on the surface from a gentleman here, that's not in, that has nothing to do with, we're not dumping sewage on any surfaces whatsoever. It's supposed to be, it's gonna be treated as we need to, from underground systems that we get permits for. I hope I addressed all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, anyone else want to speak in opposition? Okay, if not, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 23-004. Mr.
Make a
Righeimer.
motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Righeimer and a second by Ms. Wilson to come out of public hearing on rezone number 23-004. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action in the town of Bass Lake, rezone number 23-004, owner Pinewood Properties LLC. Legal description is previously read into record. This property contains 58.84 total acres zoned to agricultural 1 and commercial 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone all agricultural 1 land, which is approximately 53.17 acres, from agricultural 1 to residential recreational 2, and then to apply for a conditional use permit conditional use permit for an RV campground park. I should note here, we did have a comment letter from the DNR, which I didn't read into record. I'd like to read that now. Pinewood Properties LLC rezone request. Note that the rezone from agricultural 1 to RR2 does not change the overlaying shoreline wetland or shoreline districts and associated requirements. The surface water data viewer indicates that the stream cuts across the northwest portion of the property in question. If the stream is a navigable waterway, the department recommends ensuring any associated uses with the applicant's request meet applicable shoreline zoning regulations, including ordinary high water mark setbacks, land disturbance requirements, and vegetation standards. Further, the surface water data viewer indicates mapped wetlands in the northwest portion of the property in question. The department recommends ensuring any associated uses with the applicant's request meet the applicable shoreline wetland district requirements, including remaining outside any wetlands and not creating discharge into those wetlands. These are important considerations as the applicant stated for the purpose of the 160 site RV resort campground. The department has no comments regarding any of the other requests. So I will mention as well that yes, there are some wetlands as well as that stream that, you know, cuts through that northwest corner of the property. As indicated per the applicant's map, though, they are to remain the setback distance, which would be 75 feet from navigable water or 40 feet from any wetland areas. There is a man-made pond on this site as well, and that is to be also as a 40-foot setback for any campsite development.
Okay, thanks, Jay. All right, committee.
Make a motion that we approve the move from to recreation, agricultural to recreational.
You're making a motion to approve?
Yes.
I have a motion by Mr. Righeimer. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the rezone number 23-004. Any more discussion?
As part of discussion, and I think Rebecca would probably agree with me because of the, I guess, magnitude of this case. If we want to go through each individual findings of facts as to why you determine those findings of facts and not just saying for reasons 1 through 9, and we can kind of go through them together here. I mean, we do have a motion in a second. You know, as a findings of facts, I mean, do you find it that it would not be damaging to the rights or others or property values and the reasons why?
You want to go through?
I would.
Sure.
Now, if you don't think that it applies to that specific finding of fact, we can just not discuss it. But as you make your decision, you should work through these that, you know, because there was an existing, you know, golf course in this location, that traffic and highway access would not be, you know, impacted because there was already an established type of commercial use, and kind of working through that process. So we have a very well laid out legal analysis.
Take a half hour and do it. All right, number one, it would not significantly damage the rights for other property values. I mean, I can empathize with folks that live in that area, but I don't see the damage being significant.
Yep.
2, it would not be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, and wetland shorelands. We just heard from you, Jay, from that case that it would not be, from my understanding. 3, it would not create an air quality, water supply, or pollution problems. I felt that was addressed by yourself as well. I forgot the term on the campfires, but the smokeless campfires would address that as well. It would not create topical problems such as runoff, drainage, erosions, flooding, or vegetative cover removal. I believe I heard you say that as well.
Yeah, and that you're going to be required a stormwater management plan for that.
It would not create traffic or highway access problems. I mean, as you said, it used to be a golf course. I don't see that being a issue as well. It would not destroy prime agricultural lands. I believe it said in there that, these aren't even prime agricultural lands to begin with. It would not create an objectionable view. It appears that all the plans that have been put in place, that it would be as aesthetically pleasing as possible. It would be consistent with the town and/or county comprehensive plan. That seems to be the case. It would be compatible with surrounding use and the area. That meets it as well. I mean, we are
Other RR2 land within that area.
correct. So under findings 1 through 9.
Thank you. We have a motion and a
In-
second.
In discussion, Chairman, does it also include the planning commissions and Jay's staff report as far as conditions?
Well, there wouldn't be necessarily conditions on the rezone aspect. It would just be as kind of the findings of facts for the determinations.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, Kathy, can we have a roll call, please?
Ron Buckholz,
No.
Kay Wilson,
Yes.
Michael Maestri,
Yes.
Tweed Schuman,
Yes.
John Righeimer,
Yes.
4-1.
Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on. This is a public hearing in the town of Bass Lake, conditional use permit number 23-019, owner Pinewood Property LLC, part of the northwest one half of section 4, part lot 1 of CSM number 4022, section 4, township 40 north, range 9 west, tax ID 44728. It is 58.84 total acres, zoned agricultural 1 and commercial 1. Purpose of the request is for the location operation of a 160 site RV park resort campground as per section 17.3 parent 1, parent 17.3 parent B parent 1, subject to the rezone request, which was just recommended for approval to county board for final ratification, and that rezone number being 23-004. As part of my staff report, the purpose of this request is to have a location and operation of 160 site RV park resort campground, including a central lodge facility area with recreation area. This request is subject to section 17.3 parent B parent 1 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance for a licensed campground. The central lodge and recreational area would also be permitted use within the C1 district and is an integral part of the campground operation. Campgrounds are also subject to the provisions of section 6.6 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance and ATCP 79. As part of the project history, with the potential approval of rezone 23-004 into the RR2 zone district, the owner operator is requesting the operation of 160 unit site RV campground resort. There are additional maps attached within this packet. The campground layout must meet all minimum standards as specified in section 6.6, which it currently does, and meet Wisconsin State Chapter ATCP 79 for campground regulations. If the campground layout is to change, a new map must be placed on file with the Zoning and Conservation Department and approved by Sawyer County Zoning Committee. The current request has all sites located in the town of Bass Lake. Previous similar requests also had sites located in the town of Hayward, but those have been removed and the total number of sites has decreased from 197 to 160. The nearest site location to an adjacent property not under the same ownership is shown on the west side of the property. There are approximately 11 sites in this location that are being proposed at a minimum setback distance of 75 feet. There are 2 commercial properties within this area one mixed residential commercial property, and a larger lot of vacant land currently zoned residential recreational 2. Sites located on the north side of the property would still be located 75 feet from the applicant's adjacent property, which is located in the town of Hayward, and 75 feet from Spring Creek or 40 feet from any wetlands adjacent to that navigable water of Spring Creek. On the east side of the property, the applicant has recently surveyed out a 14.34 acre parcel, which is over 300 feet in width. Campsites in this location will be over 375 feet from the nearest property lines not owned by the applicant. Previous requests for this type of campground operation have occurred 3 times in the last 3 years. In previous requests, the rezone and CUPs were withdrawn before going to zoning committee, and there had been a deed restriction document from an adjacent property owner with the restriction in place that this land could not be anything other than a golf course. That deed restriction was removed by Mr. Robert Gershbach. The most recent request back in 2022 was approved by zoning committee for the CUP and the rezone, but the rezone was ultimately denied at county board. As part of potential conditions as laid out in my staff report, any current or future request for removal or changes of any conditions listed shall require town of Bass Lake approval. These conditions must be recorded on the property and listed as conditional use permit number 23-019 as a deed restriction and recorded within the Sawyer County Register of Deeds office. Campground will comply with all requirements of Wisconsin Admin Code ATCP 79 for campgrounds and Wisconsin Statutes 97 for food, lodging, and recreation. All other federal, state, county, town, and other local rules and laws must be followed. This would include Sawyer County zoning and conservation setback requirements from wetland areas, floodplain zoning, and navigable water setbacks. All permits, fees, campground plan approvals, and inspections required by the state Wisconsin Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection must be obtained. Maximum number of sites at the campground limited to 160. For setbacks, any site included to but not limited to camper, park model, trailer, tent, or seasonal must be a minimum as specified in the staff report and as shown on the campground layout. Vegetated cover must be maintained within 50 feet of the sites that are located on the property and not allowed by, not owned by the applicant. So that's including more so just the west property line that a 50-foot buffer be held in place. The shown recreation area on the campground layout map on the swimming area would be allowed. No mobile homes are allowed, only recreational accommodations included to but not limited to travel trailers, park models, campers, tents. All lighting must be down lighting. Any signage must comply with the Sawyer County zoning ordinance section 5.0 dated June 17, 2021. All wastewater and septic systems must comply with the state of Wisconsin and Sawyer County regulations. All provisions of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance section 6.6 shall be considered as minimum requirements. All ingress and egress shall comply with DOT, Sawyer County, and Town of Bass Lake regulations. Sites can only be operational to the public from May 1st to October 15th. A manager or designee must be available 24 hours per day. Quiet hours are to be from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. every day. No fireworks or firearms be allowed. Provisions are to be made so that no reduction or impact on broadband, internet, or Wi-Fi services for adjacent parcels due to campground activities. I had some discussion with legal counsel on this, and we are semi-uncomfortable with keeping that as part of a condition in that per the Act 55, is it Act 55 or Act 67? Rebecca, you may have to remind me on that for substantial evidence claims on conditional use permits. But the conditions as placed, go ahead.
67, Act 67 is the conditional use permit.
Thank you.
And we can touch more on that. There's a couple of.
Yeah, as per Act 67, those conditions that a zoning committee or plan committee can place on a conditional use permit must be reasonable and to the extent practicable and measurable. I would have a very hard time finding a means to have a practicable and measurable broadband Wi-Fi internet reduction condition. So as you go through and work through potential conditions here, Please keep in mind, they are to be reasonable, practicable, and measurable. I don't know how I would end up having any kind of means to quantify a reduction of broadband services for that campground. Number 19, appropriate Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, stormwater permits and or other appropriate permits are to be acquired prior to any land or earth disturbance. Any and all campsites must be 75 feet from the ordinary high water mark of Spring Creek and 40 feet from adjacent wetlands and meet all other floodplain zoning requirements. As per the town board, motion was approved. The findings of facts as laid out was the same as their findings of facts for the rezone. And they also implemented, I believe, a few other conditions outside of mine. Please give me a second to read through this. The other condition that was added as per the town of Bass Lake is that all campsite fire pits are to have smokeless fire rings. And that it was also mentioned that on the town board meeting on July 12th of 2023, that the applicant agreed to all said conditions. There were 13 additional comment letters sent out. One was returned with objections. I don't know if I have that though, Kath. Oh, and that was sent. It was the same as the rezone one that was previously read into record. That is all.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Yeah.
All right, need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 23-019.
I make that motion.
Okay, we have motion by Ms. Wilson.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Righeimer to go into public hearing on CUP number 23-019. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We are now in public hearing. Mr. Bodenjot, you want to comment on anything again? I have one question for you. Who's going to supply the fire rings? You or the people that are going to come up on their campers or camp there?
Either. It's just
Oh,
one of the requirements.
It's
A lot of
just going to be
people-
one of the requirements.
A lot of people already use them
Okay.
in our other properties, and I guess if they don't supply them, then I'll have to have some available.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody want any questions for him? Mr. Schulman,
Nope, I'm good.
Mr. Maestri?
I'm good as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anybody out there that would like to speak in favor of this CUP? Go ahead, Mr. Neese.
Bill Neese, Town of Bass Lake Planning Committee. The conditions that the town put on was a combination of Jay's, the conditions we had before, and conditions that were from the town of Hayward, as they passed it and approved it last time. So what I passed you out is the attachment that Jay has, which included all of his things, I'm quite sure, and which has also some other things, but I guess I hear consul's console, but the applicant has agreed to all of these, at least at the town level, and I'm sure he has here too. But anyway, so I would ask that our conditions be included, so.
And I do see a few other conditions that the town had on here that weren't included as part of my staff report. Specifically as the maximum number of sites, 160, maximum to include all sites under CUP 23019. All sites are subject to annual fees paid to the town of Bass Lake under their standalone camping ordinance. And then also under setbacks, any site included to but not limited to camper, park model, trailer, tent, or seasonal must be within the previous golf course tees, fairways, and putting greens for the setbacks of the property line. A covenant shall be placed by the owner on lot 1 that the existing 14.34 acres zoned agricultural can only be used as a golf course with only electric carts except for maintenance equipment. The covenants can be only changed or removed with town of Bass Lake approval. The covenants will be provided to the town and county prior to the construction of the campground compliance. Vegetative cover must be maintained within these setbacks, and then all other conditions applied. So when we go back into discussion action, I'll probably end up re-summarizing the conditions as listed in my staff report and the conditions as laid out by the town of Bass Lake.
Okay. Anyone else out there just want to speak in favor of this CUP? Anyone out there want to speak in opposition of this CUP?
First I have is Kathleen Nath. Next I have Ken Melinder.
Ken Melinder, I live at 16023 West Funny Valley Road. So the Biden administration has set aside $10 billion to help communities address and clean up PFAS. Within 3 years, every community that supplies water to 25 or more people will have to have their water tested for PFAS. My understanding of the federal law, testing will include all RV parks that serve 25 people or more. New study press released by Monica Amarillo, January 17th of this year, Environmental Working Group of Scientists. The EWG study, eating one freshwater fish equals a month of drinking unsafe levels of forever chemical in drinking water. Common disposal methods end up leading to further environmental pollution exposure to chemical pollutants in freshwater fish. A textbook case of environmental injustice. Scientist Stauber stated that identifying sources of PFAS exposure is an urgent public health priority that is contaminating soil, crops, and wildlife, and to can feed fish and needs swift regulatory action. In 2021, Lake Owen groundwater model summary was released, I believe, in 2022. A groundwater model is a mathematical model that utilizes many data to determine the boundaries of the water table that flows into Lake Owen. The model also estimates the volume of groundwater flow into Lake Owen and can be used to evaluate human activities that can affect the groundwater flow. These include large withdrawal of groundwater through high-capacity wells and pollution shorts that could affect the groundwater quality. On their model, it covered 32 square miles that can affect the fish in that lake. Several wells were tested. A lot of them tested good. So the thing of it is, I brought this to the attention to the DNR with the support of EPA scientists. They pretty much said, the only thing that we're gonna do is build a berm that goes across all of Fun Valley Road, right across from Doug Mopex to keep it from flooding my property. It's the ground. I've done 2 ground testing dig sites on my property. And then Coraline Leducer is my sister-in-law. I go down 18 inches, it's river rock, gravel, really coarse sand. I can dig a shovel full hole and I can dump 15 gallons of water in there along with a water hose. I never see water. It's that fast. So, you know, there's attorneys going nationwide trying to get this straightened out. The EPA is going to come up with stronger regulations. And the thing of it is, it's like, we don't need that recognition up here. I have kept this quiet for quite a few years. But we as the citizens have to rely on doing something to protect them forever chemicals that are getting all over the country. You know, especially in this area. It's a nationwide problem.
Okay, got 3 minutes up, sir.
Next I have Linda Zomer.
Linda Zilmer, Village of Birchwood resident, Edgewater property owner, and neighbor to 3 fairly close campgrounds. A new one opened this spring with 44 units. 2 counties to the west of us have been much more proactive with these larger size campground proposals. Burnett County amended their zoning ordinances to address these larger campsites and the impacts to neighbors. And now Washburn County has been going through the same thing. An ad hoc committee was formed and a number of different experts and people familiar with the issues were brought in as speakers to that committee. And one of the things is that there will be a diminishment of property values for these neighbors. The assessor that spoke before the Washburn County Ad Hoc Committee says he generally reduces property values at least about 10% because of the impact of noise and denser development next to residential properties. Waco has been attending, which is the Wisconsin Association of Campground Owners, have been attending as this ordinance amendment is being hammered out. But even with a campground owner on the ad hoc committee, they are not really talking at levels of 160 units. So if it looks like you are inclined to approve this, and being that the campground owner admits that he doesn't even know what he will be allowed to do or not until he gets engineering studies, I would request that you only approve phase 1, 60 units. And if it works out that he looks like he can expand more, then have him file another conditional use permit application for either phase 2 or phase 2 and phase 3. With regard to the broadband, with my new 44 unit campground neighbors, I was unable to use my cell phone for most of Memorial Day weekend extended and practically all of 4th of July weekend, and very intermittent use of my cell phone on weekends when there are more people, and I've had no problems in the past. Now, a lot of us are comparing notes. We have different carriers. We have Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. We've all spent a lot of time on the phone with our carriers trying to figure out what to do. So some of us have followed the advice and we are upping our plans and paying a premium to try and get priority on bandwidth. And the other thing is to buy a piece of equipment for a residential user. It's $250 I have to have my landline and my broadband, and then have my broadband boost my cell phone signal. And then I can only use it partway in the yard. So I just want to say that I think that should be a requirement, and the carriers do have what are called 4G LTE network extenders that have multiple users. Make that a requirement that the campground owners have the network extenders for the major carriers to minimize the impact. That way you're not having to measure, but they are limiting the impact to the neighbors because they will be affected.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I have Ellen Damask.
My name is Ellen Domask. I live at 16025 West Park Road. I just have a couple of comments to make about the conditional use permit that has been presented to the county and little notes I have taken. I noticed that when I received a copy of Town of Bass Lake's conditional use permits that they approved, it said campground can only be open from April 1st until November 1st. Jay, I believe you said it was May 1st to October 15th. What is it?
We'll have to go through that as part of the conditions.
I mean, and I know prior to this, previous gatherings we've had with this proposal, we were told that the applicant was always going to abide by the county's conditional use permit recommendations. I'm hoping that you look at this if it is approved. The other thing is, if he keeps that lot 1 on CSM 8700 as an A1, excuse me, parcel for golf, some type of golfing event, and that electric carts would be permitted there, how is he going to get those out of the way of number 8, which says the water park, ATV trails, or similar separate uses are not allowed? Is he going to allow electric golf carts throughout this RV park that he is proposing? If he is, I think that should be addressed as well, because that's also more use on the land, wear on the land. I don't care if they're electric or not, it's going to take more power. I can go through the whole list of what everyone else has said in the past. The other thing I want to ask is, as a property owner, I do believe the value of my home will go down if this goes through. But what I want to know is, are my taxes going to go up to accommodate the use on our roads and the demand it's going to put on our county? That's what I want to know, because as a taxpayer, I feel I'm paying a substantial amount to have a nice home on a nice location that I do think is going to be devalued if this does go through. The other thing I want to address is, he hasn't spoken, meaning the applicant, about storage units. Are they going to be permitted on these RV campsites? They're like these little 8x10 or 10x12s or whatever. Never talked about that. I think that's a concern we might want to look at. Where are they going to be dumping these RVs? Where are they dumping? I don't have an RV, but I know that there are sites and parks where they dump greens or grays or blacks, or I don't know what they call it, waters. Where does that go? Where are they going to address that, especially if it's a seasonal unit? The other thing I want to know is where are they going to be parking extra vehicles, boats, ATVs, trailers, et cetera, et cetera. I live on that golf course, on the edge of it. I can tell you for where he is proposing these, and I don't care how many RVs you put in a campsite unit, there is not enough space to accommodate 160 units plus ATV trailers, boats, whatever else they're hauling. I don't know where they're going to put it, but I don't think it can accommodate it. That's something else I think you should look at. Bottom line, why did I want another 300 plus person neighborhood in the middle of my neighborhood? 160 units brings in a potential 300 more people.
Time's up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have any more.
Okay, anyone else out there want to speak in opposition? Okay. Nobody's got hands up, no.
Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Okay.
Seeing none.
All right, need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 23-019.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Wilson. We have a second by Mr. Regenheimer to come out of public hearing on CUP number 23-019. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, Town of Bass Lake, conditional use permit number 23-019, owner Pinewood Properties LLC. Legal description is previously read into record. Purpose of the request is for the location operation of 160 site RV campground resort for section 17.3, parent B, parent 1. As per the conditions laid out in the staff report and per the Town of Bass Lake, I'm going to reread those back into the record to be incorporated as part of the record. We'll have a few portions within these conditions that the committee will need to weigh in on and either solidify or alter, because there are some conflicting aspects between the town's conditions and the Sawyer County Zoning Administrator's recommended conditions. First would be approval of the conditions listed as part of CUP 23-019 is required for approval of the rezone application 23-004. Approval of the rezone application is only conditional until approval of these conditions as listed without change unless approved by the Town of Bass Lake and by the Sawyer County Zoning Committee. Any current or future request or for removal or change of any conditions listed shall also require Town of Bass Lake approval. These conditions must be recorded on the property listed as CUP 23-019 as a deed restriction in the Sawyer County Office of Register of Deeds. Campground will comply with all the requirements of Wisconsin Admin Code ATPC 79 for campgrounds and Wisconsin Statute 97 for food, lodging, and recreation. All permit fees, campground plan approvals, and inspections required by the State of Wisconsin Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection must be obtained. Maximum number sites of the campground listed to be 160. As listed on the CUP 23-019, all sites are subject to annual fees paid to the Town of Bass Lake per their standalone campground ordinance. Setbacks, any sites included to but not limited to camper, park model trailer, tent, or seasonal must be within the previous golf course. For the setbacks to the property lines, a covenant shall be placed by the owner on lot 1, which is the 14.34 acre parcel. Can only be used as a golf course with only electric carts except for maintenance equipment. The covenants can only be changed or removed with Town of Bass Lake approval. The covenants will provide to the town. The covenants will be provided to the town and county prior to the construction of the campground for compliance. A vegetated cover must be maintained within the setback areas. Water parks, ATV trails, or similar separate uses are not allowed. Although there is an approved allowed recreational area. No mobile homes allowed. Only recreational accommodations included to but not limited to travel trailers, park models, campers, tents, etc. All lighting must be down lighting. All signage must comply with the Sawyer County zoning ordinance section 5.0 dated June 20th, 2019. All wastewater and septic systems must comply with state of Wisconsin and Sawyer County regulations. All provisions of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance section 6.6 dated June 20th, 2019 shall be considered as minimum requirements. All ingress and egress shall comply with DOT, Sawyer County, and Bass Lake regulations. And then here's one that we need to consider is campground operational timeframes. As specified in section 6.6 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance, which is in compliant with ATCP 79. Campgrounds may only be operational from April 1st until April 1st to December 1st. I'd like to, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, ask the applicant as when they are planning to have open hours.
Sure.
Or open dates.
Yeah, in our area, the range is from April 1st to November 1st. Anything after November 1st, we risk freezing. So you have no intentions of staying open later than November 1st in any given year.
So I would include that as part of a condition that campground can only be open from April 1st until November 1st. A manager or designee must be on site 24 hours per day. Quiet hours are to be from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. every day. No fireworks or firearms are allowed. All campsite fire pits to be smokeless fire rings. And then we get to another one, which we need to have discussion here via the committee. Provisions are to be made so that no reduction of or impact on broadband, internet, or Wi-Fi service for adjacent properties due to campground activities, with the potential including of network extenders. I think I'm going to stop here at this point and let the committee weigh in if they want to include that as part of a condition, as well as have legal counsel weigh in as far as the practicable and measurable conditions that may hold.
Good, Mr. Reimer.
So Jay, you're saying that, I mean, I understand the broadband issue. But you're saying you can't measure it. So that's why
I wouldn't know what mechanism
know
I
what
would
to
have
do.
to use in order to have that be measurable. Because if someone says my cell signals lost reduction because of this campground, how can I specifically go back and point to say that it was the campground that caused it and not Lumberjack Fest weekend?
Well, I agree, and I don't know if this is pertinent, but I mean, is the cell issue we have and the challenges we have in the county, I mean, most time, the answer I get back is, well, that's a town issue. A town issue to get the Verizon, whoever that wants to put a tower up. I mean, so that's not even a county issue, is it?
No, and it generally falls within the actual provider of the cell service. You know, we've had several new class 2 modifications to towers over the last few years. Now, those wouldn't be as specific conditional use permits because they're not new towers, but they're adding new equipment and new antennas all the time. I'm hoping that's because these providers are seeing that, wow, there's a big influx in people that come to this area on any given weekend in the summer. But again, as to the specifics of that condition, I don't have a mechanism.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, it's a tough one, but you can't measure it, so it would be somewhat useless.
Rebecca, you want to put an input on that broadband thing there?
You bet. As Jay indicated under 5969(5)(e), any conditions on a conditional use permit must be reasonable and to the extent practicable, measurable, and they cannot be based on speculation. With respect to cell service, we have other statutes on point that address what a municipality can and can't do when regulating cellular service and other technological advancements as part of a land use program. Now, those statutes, specifically 660414, I believe, apply when a municipality is reviewing a proposal for cellular service or a proposal from that provider. It doesn't apply, and therefore the restrictions on what the county can't can or can't do in those types of applications does not apply in this type of scenario. So that was my first concern, that because we have these other statutes that prohibit the county from doing certain things and imposing certain restrictions on cellular facilities, if that would come into play here. Under the language of 660414, it does not. However, when the committee is looking at whether this restriction is reasonable, I think it's appropriate for the committee to utilize those other statutes and those other statutory prohibitions on the county regulation of cellular services in eliminating this condition. That's one point. Number two, I think the issue of measurable is of legal concern as well, because how do we measure that? I'm not aware of the technology to be able to do that. It sounds like Jay has researched this issue. He's not aware of it. And so putting a condition on a conditional use permit that is difficult to measure creates a burden for the county, because obviously it's Jay's department and the county's responsibility to enforce the conditions. So that's the second point. The third point is perhaps a better alternative would be for the applicant to agree to make some concerted efforts to work with the neighbors and other folks who may have this concern. And I know that that is not it may not be a reasonable solution for the people that have these concerns. But from a legal standpoint, I am concerned about including number 18 as a condition of approval. Final note on that, if the applicant is fine with number 18, the committee can leave it in there. So I guess the first question would be whether the applicant is okay with that condition. And if so, the committee can choose to leave it in.
Okay.
Any questions? I'm happy to take those.
I guess I really don't see why you put that in there. Okay, we just omit it. And then
You can, yeah, you certainly can. You don't have to include that as part of a condition. And ultimately, you would have to have the applicant still agree upon it, because the applicant can say, no, I don't agree to that condition. And that's not necessarily a grounds for denial of conditional use permit. And if you want to hear from the applicant now, or if this committee wants to potentially omit that condition. Broadband Wi-Fi.
Yeah, just omitting it from the finding of facts. Mr. Bodenschott, what do you think of that?
Yeah, so with respect to what we discussed with the township and what, I don't know if that was your edition, county's edition or the township's edition. What I know that we can control is what we will have access to as far as internet and broadband. That's going to be limited based on the service provider. Cell service, that's something I know nothing about. I do know broadband and internet that we will have our own bandwidth that is designated to us as the service sees fit. It's the best answer I can give you. It's probably going to be Charter or Starlink.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, committee. Where are we at?
Well, the committee still needs to make a decision on that condition. I do have a few other conditions to read in as part of the record still.
I'd like to keep that condition because knowing what it's like when guests come to our resort and everybody gets on their Wi-Fi, it goes. And that's a difficult situation for everyone.
Okay. What do you think, Mr. Devanner?
Use your light, please.
Does with the challenges of broadband, Wi-Fi, et cetera. But I mean, I think if you can't measure it, it's kind of it's in token only. So I'm for leaving it out.
Mr. Schulman.
Yeah, I'm there too, Chairman. If you can't measure it, or it's difficult to measure, how are we gonna ever police it or control it? So yeah, I would say leave it out.
Mr. Maestri,
Ditto.
what's your opinion on that?
I'd leave it out.
Okay. All right.
No, ultimately, it would be as part of whoever makes the motion to omit that, but I wanted to have that discussion here. That appropriate Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources stormwater permits or other appropriate permits are to be acquired prior to any land or earth disturbance activities. All campsites must be 75 feet from the ordinary high water mark of Spring Creek and adjacent wetlands, and 40-foot setback from any non-navigable, non-adjacent wetlands, and to meet all floodplain zoning requirements. It was mentioned at the town board meeting as well as here today that the applicant agrees to all said conditions. And the one other one that I did want to bring up would be the use of golf carts within the campground. I would just have on there that the use of electric golf carts be allowed as part of my condition, and that they be electric only, unless the applicant is not agreeable to that condition and or this committee doesn't want to put it on there. And it looks like the applicant would like to discuss that.
Okay. Yes, you may.
And that would be not specifically as part of any kind of golf course area, but just as far as a means of transportation.
Sure. Well, it's a minute point and it's not a deal killer whatsoever, but I'm not sure what the difference is between an electric or a gasoline golf cart. Gasoline golf carts. Stop interrupting me, please. I'm sorry, guys. They were used on the golf course for years and years and years, and how noisy were they really? I don't know, but it's my new point. That's all I want to say. But it's not a deal killer.
All right, thank you.
Jay, was there a reason you strictly just make them electric?
No.
Just,
I think it's something that we want to discuss as part of conditions, so that, if golf carts are to be allowed as part of the campground use. I mean, generally you see, these larger campgrounds, there are quite a few golf carts that are running around out there. And really it's up to this committee to say, yes, you can have them. No, you can have them. Do they have to be gas or electric? To me, it doesn't make a difference one way or the other, as long as, there's no potential contamination of, because I would assume you'd have to have some type of gasoline storage on site then. There's a small tank, to fill these. But.
Right. Okay.
Sir,
Thank
you have a question? Yes.
Steve Bowden, Shots Pine Wood Properties, 8555N Deerfoot Road, Hayward. I operate 5 other campgrounds in southern Wisconsin, quite large, much larger than we're proposing here. We have several golf carts. I personally want to lean towards electric carts, but if I just put electric carts, I have to follow what the market is. And also our campsites are only 50 amp services. We aren't plugging them into a 200 amp service like you'd have at your residence. So the extra electricity draw, I'm not sure how that would affect the electrical system in the park, but they only have a 50 amp plug-in. Some sites have only have a 30 amp, but all of ours are going to be 50 amp. So while I would prefer that, I don't want to be limited to that. I think that's unfair. And there has been 20, 30 golf carts running around that golf course for years and nobody complained. And if we have any noise complaints, we certainly will address it. And also where we're located in our campground, and nobody can even see us in there. We're off the road. We're not like KOA, or we're not like the one down here on 63 in Washburn County. Nobody can even see us. So it's not going to be a noise issue. It's not going to be a site issue. Thank you.
I think maybe a good meet in the middle thing here would be that golf cart use be allowed as part of the campground operation, but no ATV, UTVs allowed as part of general transportation within that. Now, obviously, some of the ATVs and UTVs, will be, driving out to Fun Valley Road, which is an approved ATV route, and then further going on the trails. But for general transportation within the campground, that golf cart use be allowed, and just leave it as that and not touch the gas versus electric issue.
Okay, my question is though, are them golf carts feasible for doing your campground maintenance? You know what I'm saying? Can they handle that? No, I don't mean for mowing. I mean for maintenance, like fixing holes or hauling garbage or. Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
So as part of my staff report conditions, it would be listed as the attachment of the town of Bass Lake, omitting number 20, which is for the provisions of broadband, Wi-Fi, and internet. It would also then include that golf cart use as part of the campground operation is allowed with no ATV, UTV use as a mode of transportation within the campground. Now, again, if someone hauled in their ATV and they're now taking their ATV to exit said campground to go to a trail, that would be as part of the approved use. Correct. Correct. And that we have in here is that ATV trails or similar uses are not allowed within the campground. And the applicant again has agreed to those conditions.
All right, committee.
I make a motion to approve, including the conditions from the town you discussed and eliminating 20 use of golf carts allowed, and you're limiting to the ATVs to just get off to the trail.
Yep. And you're omitting
Finding.
18 on J's too, right?
Yeah, so actually, we're not gonna look at mine, we're gonna look at the towns,
Okay.
which are very similar, and
Yeah,
I have a
fair.
hard copy of them here, I don't have them on digitally. I can certainly add that to the record, so it's all incorporating.
Okay.
But it's the town's provisions, which 20 on the town's provisions is the Wi-Fi aspect.
Right. You have to go through the findings or,
Yeah, we probably should again.
okay, under findings 1 through 9, so I'm pretty much going to repeat myself from before. Would not significantly be damaging to the rights of other property owners and values. As I said, I don't believe significantly enough to board not doing this. It would not be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, wetlands, and shorelands.
That would be a fire alarm.
Attention. An emergency has been reported. All occupants walk to the nearest stairway exit and walk down to your assigned re-entry floor or main lobby. Do not use the elevator. Walk
So
to the nearest stairway.
we are being evacuated at this point. We will resume once the warning has been reduced. We'll keep the microphones running at this point.
Do not use the elevator. To the nearest stairway. Do not use the elevator. To the nearest stairway. Attention. An emergency has been reported. All occupants walk to the nearest stairway exit and walk down to your assigned re-entry floor or main lobby. Do not use the elevator. Walk to the nearest stairway. Do not use the elevator. Walk to the nearest stairway.
Can you hear me, Rebecca?
Yes, I can.
It's just you and me now,
I guess so, Mike. I was thinking that, like, if we gotta make sure the record reflects that this is technically a break. But this is good because it's giving me a chance to catch up on some of the research that I do, like in anticipation of questions. So it's good.
You still on, Tweed?
I think. Tweet, are you still on the line?
We come back in the building.
About 45 minutes.
So, because I didn't bring lunch.
About 45 minutes, Roger.
Yeah.
What's the longest zoning meeting you've had?
Longer than this.
Yeah.
We've been having up into 1 o'clock.
Yeah. All right, so we're just getting back in from our fire alarm drill that we just had. We'll let people kind of shuffle back in, and then we'll have Kathy read back as to where we had left off.
Yeah.
Well, a motion's been made, but not.
Oh, done.
Yeah. No, I know. Okay.
Sure.
Yep, we're back in session. We're supposed to wait for Bill, but here you go.
Okay. And I'll have Kathy read back in as to where we left off.
Sorry about that. Where we are at, we're going through the conditions here, and the town number 20 is omitted. ATVs not allowed, but golf carts are. And then that's.
A motion was made by Mr. Righeimer,
yes.
and we.
I was on number 2.
Okay.
So on number 2, it would not be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, wetlands, and shorelands, based upon what we talked about previously from your report, Jay. That would not be the case. Would not create an air quality, water supply, or pollution problems, as we discussed previously from you in your report. It would not create topographical problems such as runoff damage, erosion, flooding, or vegetation's cover removal, as well as same as I said in 2 and 3. It would not create traffic or highway access problems. I just do not see that as an issue. It would not destroy prime agricultural lands. It was stated that it was not prime agricultural to begin with. It would not create an objectionable view. It is out of sight and not such. It would not create. It would be consistent with the town and/or county comprehensive plan. That is the case. It would be compatible with the surrounding use and the area of the Hayward area. That is the case.
Who made the second?
No one yet.
No one?
Right.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Ringheimer. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Mr. Maestri, Tweet, are you online?
I'm on. I think Tweed's gone.
What?
I, Michael Maestri, am online, but I haven't been able to raise Tweed.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor right now.
We're waiting for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Ringheimer and a second by Mr. Maestri to approve CUP number 23-019. Any more discussion? If not,
I think we need to address some of the issues that were brought up about where are they going to put the trailers? Where are they going to have storage? Are they going to allow storage units? I think about all the things that the campers bring with them. Where is the room for this? It reminds me of when the Treeland RV Park came before the town of Round Lake, and they asked for 150, and we gave approval for 75. And the next year, Harold said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." It was too big. Maybe this is just a little bit too big, and we should, like Linda suggested, approve phase 1.
okay, I mean, Mr. Bodenshot was up there and I asked if anybody wanted any more questions. Nobody spoke up, but one of you guys would like to speak to that quickly? Thank you.
The average size site, actually the smallest site is 50 by 80, which, the actual parking pad for any our camping units is 12 by 5. That's larger, with maximum square foot that is actually the biggest. So, with that said, you get 12 by 35, and you have another 38 feet of width on the smallest site, 38 feet parkable vehicle, all that kind of stuff, and average garage is only 4 by 4. A lot of room on that. As well for, means you store anything, up to 100 square foot shed, less than 100 square foot shed, that we allow property to always store. These sites over here are well beyond the 50 by 80. And as far as being able to position the boat trailer or a vehicle and all that is more than enough. Minimum size is 50 by 80.
Okay, thank you. How was that, Ms. Wilson? Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Never.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second to approve. No more discussion, I guess. Roll call, Kathy?
Ron Buckholz,
Yes.
Kay Wilson.
Yes.
Michael Maestri,
Yes.
Tweed Schuman, John Righeimer.
Yes.
All in
Rebecca, how do
favor?
we mention that no vote from Tweed? Is it just 4-0 or is it 4-0 with one unable to cast a vote?
Yes, I would say 4-0, 1 absent.
All right.
Okay, 4-0, 1 absent.
Thank you. All right, number 6.
This is the final plat approval process. This is the final first edition of the Hatchet Creek subdivision plat. Owner Greg Grossi and Mr. Patrick Duffy. This was previously heard as a preliminary plat last month, and now we have the final plat provision. It's actually called the North Patry Creek subdivision. I believe, is it Mr. Duffy, want to share any additional info on this? Or, no, sorry.
Not here.
Step up to the mic there, Phil.
Yes, sure. The town has reviewed it because the town has their own ordinance for this, and it has, in every way, fulfilled the obligations of the ordinance, so.
Okay. Do you need approval in this final plat?
Yeah, as part of the zoning committee approval process, we would be looking for a motion for approval. We then would have a signing of the final plat map, which then would be recorded to the Register of Deeds office.
Okay, I'll make that motion to approve the final division plat, subdivision plat. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Buckle, second by Ms. Wilson to approve the addition to Hatch Creek subdivision plat. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries to approve. Number 7.
As far as new business, I don't have any new business at this point. Just that, yeah, our office is still slammed busy with regular permit applications coming in. So I have not had a chance to really pick up any ordinance amendment aspects at this point. I'll try to continue to work on them. Hopefully things start slowing down soon. I can kind of switch back focus to that, but it has been another crazy busy summer. No doubt about it.
You're fully staffed, right, Jake?
Just as of this week, we had a maternity leave that just came back. So that was another added stress. Mhm.
Yeah.
Other than that, that is all I have.
Okay. Anybody else have anything before we adjourn here? If not, thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
Yeah, right now it's fine.
Thank you, everyone.